Chapter 75. Fengwu took the menu and looked at it for a while. She felt that all of them looked delicious. What should she do if it was difficult to choose? Seeing the troubled look on Fengwu's face, he guessed that she probably didn't know which one to eat first, so he said again, if you don't know what to choose, you don't have to choose. Give me one of your best-selling cakes and a pot of herbal tea. Okay. Please wait for a moment. The waiter took the menu and left to prepare the cake for the two of them. A few minutes later, the pastries ordered by Tan Lang were all delivered to the table. There were more than 10 kinds of delicious cakes on the table, and the table was almost full. Initially, Tan Lang thought that he might have ordered too much. He felt that it was too sweet just by looking at it, so how could he eat it? In order to maintain his perfect figure, he had always paid special attention to his diet. Therefore, he ordered these pastries for Fengwu in front of him. He would not eat such sweet things. But now, looking at the thin and weak girl in front of him, and then looking at the table full of cakes, he suddenly wondered if he had ordered too much yesterday. Such a thin and weak girl would probably not be able to eat more than 2 pieces. He wanted to ask the waiter to return some of the cakes, but he accidentally saw the Fengwu girl's eyes shining. He could not say it out loud. Forget it, if she couldn't finish it, he would take it away. He, Tan Lang, could not disappoint the girl. Eat slowly. If you can't finish it, it's okay to take it away. As he spoke, he was shocked by the speed at which the girl ate the cake. She ate a cake the size of a fist in 2 bites. He only said a few words, but the girl in front of him actually ate 2 pieces of cake. Now she was attacking the 3rd cake. He did not know what to say after that. Strange, what did he want to say just now? 15 minutes later, more than 10 pieces of cake were all gone. All the plates were clean and looked no different from washed ones. Are you full? Do you want a few more slow cakes? Tan Lang asked carefully. No need. I still have to go back for dinner later. I can't eat too much. Fengwu looked at Tan Lang seriously and said, Young girl, are you sure you're not joking? After eating more than 10 pieces of cake, you're actually telling me you're planning to go back for dinner. Xiao Wu, when you get married in the future, you must find a rich husband, understand? Ordinary people can't afford to raise you. Tan Lang looked into Fengwu's eyes seriously. Please look at my sincere eyes. I'm doing this for your own good. Oh, I know. Ajur said the same thing. Fengwu nodded. Ajur had said the same thing after seeing her appetite. So he wasn't the only one who thought this way. Tan Lang nodded and understood. Here, this is a gift for you. Tan Lang suddenly took out an exquisite bag. This was the bag that all the clothing stores on the continent used to store clothes. For me. She took it doubtfully and opened it. It turned out to be the clothes she had tried on in the store just now. I saw that it looked good when you tried it on. Then I saw that you didn't buy it, so I bought it for you. This is a gift for a friend. You can't reject it. As he spoke, he winked playfully. Fengwu looked at the clothes and then at Tan Lang. Ajur said that she couldn't accept gifts from strangers. Tan Lang treated her to cake and even chatted with her. They should be friends. Friends should be able to accept gifts, right? Fengwu wasn't too sure, but seeing Tan Lang's expectant eyes, she still accepted the gift. I don't have a gift for you. Her voice was a little listless. It's okay. You can give it to me when you find something suitable. Tan Lang said generously. Tan Lang, you're actually a good person. He bought slow cakes for her and even gave her a gift. Had he been given the good guy card? Tan Lang was a little depressed. Why was this girl so dumb? After Tan Lang went to the cashier to pay the bill, he left with Fengwu. He was afraid that he would see the strange look from the waiter if he left a little later. Let's go. I'll send you back. Tan Lang said with a smile. You want to send me back? Fengwu held the bag of clothes in one hand and looked cute. Yeah, I'm going to meet your friend Ajur. Actually, Ajur and I know each other. Tan Lang rubbed the girl's soft black hair. Tan Lang was like a satisfied cat. Her hair was really soft. You know Ajur? Fengwu widened her eyes in surprise. Tan Lang was Ajur's friend? Let's go. We'll know when we meet him. Tan Lang grabbed Fengwu's hand and walked forward. After a few steps, Fengwu suddenly stopped moving. Tan Lang couldn't pull her away no matter how hard he tried. 3 black lines appeared on his forehead. Sister Xiao Wu, I'm not lying to you. I'm really Ajur's friend. Tan Lang thought that he was being suspected. He sighed and tried to convince the girl to believe him. No, you're going in the wrong direction. It's this way. The girl calmly pulled her hand out and turned to look in the other direction. Let's go. Pierre's small hotel was doing very well because of the two big events that happened in Frost City. It wasn't dinner time yet, but there were already many people sitting in the lobby on the first floor drinking and eating. They were all eating barbecued meat. Lam's barbecued meat was excellent and was very popular with the guests. Pierre and Ajur were also sitting at a wooden table with a cup of ale in their hands. Little Bun was playing upstairs with Little White accompanying him. While they were eating happily, the door opened. A handsome man walked in first. The man was so beautiful that it was hard to tell if he was a man or a woman. His face could kill both men and women. Welcome. Lam immediately went to greet him. He wondered where this young man came from. It was too dangerous for him to walk alone outside. The handsome man calmly walked into the shop. Behind him was a little beauty in a light purple dress. This little beauty was too familiar. Xiaowu, why did you come back with Tan Lang? Ajur guessed that the necromancer would definitely find the problem with the cave and report it to the Star Hall. But he didn't expect that the Star Hall would send the sissy Tan Lang. Tan Lang was one of the 28 star generals of the Star Hall. He was a magician, but his swordsmanship was also outstanding. He was a very powerful opponent. In the Star Hall, his position wasn't low and he was very important. It was just that he was too vain. In the morning, it would take him 2 hours to dress up and wear the clothes he was going to wear that day. On average, he would look in the mirror once every hour. It was said that the mirror in his hand was his weapon. The weapons of star generals could freely change their forms. Every generation of star generals could change their weapons once when they took over the position. Of course, that was the only time. Chapter 76. When the weapon's transformation was complete, the corresponding constellation would bestow the weapon with the corresponding power. Every generation of star generals couldn't use the same weapons, and of course their functions couldn't be exactly the same. When a weapon transformed, if you wanted it to be a sword, then it would be a sword. If you wanted it to be a staff, then it would be a staff. Among star generals, not all of their weapons were swords and staffs, but their weapon was a mirror. Perhaps this guy alone was the only one. Greedy Wolf's mirror had the function of reflecting the truth. It was very effective against those demons and Ajuras who were good at disguising themselves. Thinking of this, Ajur could guess why this guy came. Little Flame, long time no see. Greedy Wolf walked to Ajur's table and sat down. Many people noticed Greedy Wolf. After all, he was very handsome, and it was hard for him not to attract attention. Fortunately, there were only men here, and only Lamu and Fengwu were women. Although Greedy Wolf's face was indeed very eye-catching, men always valued strength more. Greedy Wolf didn't have any weapons in his hands, and he had the posture of a noble young master. Except for Ajur, who knew his background, no one could treat such a beautiful man as a master. Xiaowu, you're back. Ajur was too lazy to pay attention to this guy, and directly ignored him. Yes, this is a gift from Greedy Wolf. Fengwu still wasn't sure whether she should accept Greedy Wolf's gift, and she was a little hesitant when she spoke. Ajur waved his hand. It's okay. Just accept this guy's gift. This guy doesn't have any other skills, but he has a lot of money. After saying that, he curled his lips at Greedy Wolf. This guy was still as annoying as when he was a child. Greedy Wolf felt a little itchy to beat him up. Come, sit down and eat something. Xiaowu, you've been out for so long. You must be hungry. Pierre said to Fengwu considerately. Yes. Fengwu nodded. She handed the clothes that Tanlang gave to Ram and sat beside Pierre. Tanlang had already taken the seat beside Ajur. I didn't expect the Star Hall to send you here. I thought it would be Wu Chu or Lian Zhan. Ajur took a big gulp of ale and glanced at Greedy Wolf carelessly. The two of them happened to have other missions and were not around. Ziwei had no choice but to send me, Tanlang said nonchalantly. In any case, he and this brat hated each other. Brother Tanlang is from the Star Hall? Pierre had never thought that one day he would be able to drink with those big shots of the Star's Hall. The identity of Greedy Wolf surprised and delighted him. He's just a janitor in the Star Hall. Don't worry about him. Ajur sneered and said disdainfully, sweep the yard. Even if he was beaten to death, He would never associate this Lord Greed with the aunties and uncles who swept the yard. Ajur is right. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. Eat. Tan Lang, who was called an uncle who swept the yard, was eating the barbecue and ale that Ram had just given him. Tan Lang was already eye-catching. Sitting at the same table was Ajur, a flame-like handsome man. Two handsome men gathered at their table. Even if there were no women around, they still attracted a lot of attention. The hall was not a place to talk. After the four of them finished eating, they went to the second floor and went directly to Pierre's study. Tell me, you've been in Frost City for a few days. You should have found out a lot of things. Tan Lang sat on the sofa in the study as if he was familiar with it. It was just a simple action of sitting down, but he could make it look elegant and charming. That's true. In Frost City, the most suspicious people are Wanda and Dusha. Take a good look at their true faces with your mirror. Tan Lang nodded, accepting Ajur's advice. After that, Ajur told Tan Lang about what had happened in Frost City recently. Of course, the most important thing was the things that happened around Wenda's family, as well as the hundreds of female corpses in the cave. This time, Xiao Wu and I have accepted a mission to find the murderer. Before you take the Shura away, remember to let me and Xiao Wu hand in the mission. Ajur was not willing to work for free. He and Feng Wu still needed to make money. Tan Lang felt that it was nothing, so he agreed. Since he agreed, Ajur did not think about wasting time. He had not done anything in the past 2 days because he was waiting for the people from Star Hall to come. Because the matter involved the Shura, it was not simple. Star Hall was responsible for arresting these illegal immigrants who did not abide by the Convention of the Three Realms. Of course, the arresting work could only be carried out after the people from Star Hall arrived. When night came, the moon of Frost City hung high in the sky with a cold chill. At this time, the manor where Mr. Wenda lived was silent. It was as if no sound could be heard. There was a faint candlelight in the manor, which made people feel that it was not an empty house. What's going on? Why are they sleeping so early? Ajur, Tan Lang and Feng Wu sneaked into the manor where Wenda and his wife lived. However, the silence and gloominess of the manor made people feel very uneasy. There's something wrong with this place. It was not Tan Lang's first time on a mission. Naturally, he could tell that something was wrong with the manor. It was too quiet. Even though most people in Frost City were used to going to bed early because the night was longer than the day, it should not be so quiet. There should be servants keeping watch at night in the manor. Xiao Wu, be careful later. If you can't win, run, okay? Ajur looked at Feng Wu worriedly. He was afraid that she would be so stupid that she would choke herself to death. Okay. Nodding obediently, Ajur was relieved. He knew that Feng Wu would definitely do what she promised. I'm very powerful, Feng Wu said seriously. She had Xiaochun and could protect herself. Unfortunately, no one believed her. No one would believe that a freshman could be so powerful. Tan Lang patted the girl's head. Then, the three of them moved carefully in the courtyard. There were no candles in the courtyard. They could only rely on the faint moonlight for illumination. When the three of them passed by a very beautiful flower bed, Feng Wu suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Ajur had been paying attention to Feng Wu. When he found that Feng Wu did not follow, he immediately turned back to look for her. There's a person buried here. These flowers are very sad. They said that the person buried here is a good person. A person buried here. Ajur had a certain understanding of Feng Wu's ability. He knew that she could understand the language of these plants. Therefore, if Feng Wu said that there was a person buried here, then there must be a person buried here. Chapter 77. Don't worry about it for now. Let's find Wenda and Dusha first. Tan Lang made a prompt decision. The three of them moved forward again. They decided to test that Dusha first. Dusha's identity was a mystery. Ever since they came to Frost City, several major events had happened in Frost City. In short, this woman was Ajur's most suspicious target. Just as the three of them reached the door and were about to open it, the door suddenly opened from the inside. The person who opened the door was a girl dressed as a maid. When the girl saw three strangers suddenly appear, she was so frightened that she immediately wanted to scream. Tan Lang quickly covered the maid's mouth. Don't scream. We're not bad people. Take us to a hidden place now. We have something to ask you. Tan Lang covered the girl's mouth with one hand and restrained the girl's body with the other, not allowing her to move. The girl nodded and then obediently led them to a room where miscellaneous items were stored. This room was filled with miscellaneous items that were not usually used, but it did not look like anyone would come here. I'll let you go now. We have something to ask you. Answer our questions properly and we won't hurt you. After Tan Lang finished speaking, he gently let go of the girl's mouth. The girl first heaved a sigh of relief, then turned around to look at Tan Lang and the other two. Are you investigating Master Wenda and Madame Dusha? The girl's voice was very excited, and there was even some anticipation in her voice. How did you know? Ajur did not expect this maid to be so smart. Wouldn't a normal person think that they wanted to break into the house to steal? I guess. The girl said embarrassedly. Do you know something? Tan Lang was worthy of being a Star Hall star general. He saw through the girl's hesitation at a glance. I can tell you what I know, but please save Madame Dusha. As long as you promise to save her, I'll tell you what I know. The girl anxiously wanted to pull Tan Lang's sleeve, but who was Tan Lang? He never liked strangers having physical contact. If he was not afraid that the maid would scream, he would not have touched her at all. The girl did not reach out her hand after grabbing the air. Instead, she grabbed her skirt with both hands, appearing to be at a loss. Who are you? Why do you want us to save Madame Dusha? Ajur suddenly felt that this girl's identity might not be ordinary. Could she be Dusha's confidant? It had to be said that Ajur was right. This girl was really Madame Tussauds' trusted aide. My name is Sheila. I'm Madame Tussauds' dowry maid. Sheila clutched her skirt. Although she was a little hesitant, she still revealed her identity. Ajur and Tan Lang exchanged glances. They were so lucky to have met a big fish that was useful to them. As far as I know, the current Mr. Wenda loves Madame Tussaud very much. Why do you still want us to help you save Madame Tussaud? Greed asked. If it's the real Mr. Wenda, I naturally wouldn't be worried. But this person is no longer Mr. Wenda. Sheila suddenly covered her mouth and cried bitterly. Her cries were filled with despair and sadness. What's going on? Can you tell us the whole story? How did Madame Tussaud get involved with Mr. Wenda? Originally, Ajur had always thought that the problem was most likely Madame Tussaud. Her origins were a mystery, and she had suddenly appeared in Frost City. Since her arrival, there had been so many murders. All of these incidents could not be unrelated to her. But now, listening to the little maid's words, it had nothing to do with Madame Tussaud. It was all Wenda's fault. Most importantly, Wenda was not the real person. They had thought of many possibilities, but they had never suspected that Wenda was fake. This news really surprised Ajur and Greed. Only Fengwu was relatively calm. She had a stoic expression the entire time. Actually, our madam has known Mr. Wenda for a long time. Madam is the sister of Master's first love. Master and Madam's sister were originally a couple. At that time, Master's family business had some problems. Madam's family did not agree to the marriage. Instead, they married Madam's sister to a rich aristocrat. Unfortunately, that noble committed a crime, and in the end his entire family was implicated. Even the Madam's family suffered a serious blow, and the family fell into decline. At that time, the Madam was only a 10-year-old child, but she saw her family members leave her one by one because they could not withstand the blow. Just when Madam couldn't hold on anymore, Master Wenda appeared. At that time, Miss Clara was already 3 years old. Master Wenda and Madame Marin's relationship was very stable. When he heard that something had happened to his first love's family, he was still worried and wanted to take a look. When Master Wenda arrived, Madam was the only one left in her family. Master Wenda was a good person. Because of his wife's status, it was inconvenient to bring her home, so he bought another house outside Frost City and left a few servants to take care of his wife's daily life. Master Wenda also often came to visit. Madam was a kind person. Most of the servants in the house were pitiful people who were taken in by Madam. I was also taken in by Madam. After Madam took me in, I became Madam's personal maid. After becoming Madam's maid, I learned that Madam had been in love with Master Wenda. It was just that she was too young at that time, and Master Wenda already had Madame Marin. Madam had always hidden her feelings in her heart. This feeling was hidden for 12 years. When Madame was 22 years old, she saved a pitiful man. That man was an orphan in the village. He was also in his 20s. At that time, Madame saw him lying on the roadside with blood all over his body, so she saved him. That man was very diligent and efficient in his work. His popularity in Madame's villa was getting better and better. At that time, several of us girls who were also maids fell in love with him. We hoped that Madame could make one of us become his wife. Originally, I was very confident in becoming his wife because I was the most beneficial person by Madame's side. Among all the maids, Madame loved me the most. Wait, what we want to hear is about Wenda and Madame Tussaud, not about your love history. When Ajur heard that she had actually changed the topic from Madame Tussaud to himself, he couldn't help but speak out to stop her. This is also related to Madame, and it's very important. Please listen more and you will understand. Sheila was a little embarrassed and said eagerly, Ajur, let her talk. I think she will talk about this matter. It shouldn't be something insignificant. Tan Lang was much more patient than Ajur. Chapter 78. Ajur nodded in agreement and let her continue. Sheila took a deep breath and continued. That man was called Marlin and I liked him. I also thought that I would marry him, but later on, I found that he often stared at the Madame in a daze, and would secretly hide the Madame's handkerchief. At that time I knew that the one he liked was not us maids but the Madame. Marlin fell in love with the Madame. This was simply a bolt from the blue for me. I knew that even if Marlin loved the Madame, there would be no result between them. I wanted Marlin to dispel the thoughts in his heart for the Madame, so I began to hint to him that the Madame had a sweetheart. Although I hinted many times, I also knew that the Madame's love for Master Wenda could not be known by others, so I did not hint that the person was Mr. Wenda. But I did not expect Marlin to be so smart. When Mr. Wenda came to visit the Madame, he discovered the Madame's feelings for Master Wenda. I thought that he would give up. As long as he gave up, he would be able to accept my feelings. After all, I loved him so much. But I did not expect that Marlin would disappear the next day. I thought that he could not bear the blow, so he left without saying goodbye. Although my heart was in pain, I believed that he would come back one day. Not long after Marlin left, Mr. Wenda came to visit the Madame again. But this time, after Mr. Wenda left, the Madame was as happy as a happy bird. Later on, the Madame told me that Mr. Wenda actually responded to the Madame's love, and he also planned to take the Madame to his home, and wanted to dissolve the marriage with Madame Marin. All of this was simply inconceivable. Mr. Wenda used to visit the Madame every day, and I saw very clearly that Mr. Wenda did not have any feelings for the Madame, so how could he suddenly love the Madame so much that he was willing to give up his original family for her? But the Madame was too happy, and did not listen to my persuasion. She only wanted to become husband and wife with Mr. Wenda, and be together forever. Later, the Madame only took me, a maid, and left the house that she had lived in for more than 10 years, and went to Master Wenda's manor, where we met Madame Marin and Miss Clara for the first time. Master Wenda had a big quarrel with Madame Marin in front of me and Madame. Madame Marin insisted on not cancelling the marriage. The two of them were in a deadlock. Madame was sandwiched between them, and had to bear the supercilious looks of the servants in the manor. This made Madame very sad, but she couldn't bear to force Master Wenda. Thinking about what had happened when she first came to this manor, it was as if a lifetime had passed. If she knew the truth of the matter, she would not have let Madame come to this place no matter what. After 3 years, Madame Marin finally thought it through and was willing to help Master Wenda and Madame Tussaud. Marin had left half a year ago, and as long as they dissolved their marriage, they would no longer have any relationship with each other. I thought that Madame Marin and Master Wenda would finally be able to live a happy life. Madame Marin was also very happy. She had waited for so many years and finally, she and Master Wenda would be together. But I gradually felt that something was wrong. Not long after Madame Marin moved away, the old servants in the manor who had been working for a long time were dismissed by Master Wenda. Although Master Wenda was still a gentle master, his eyes often reminded me of Marlin. I thought that I was thinking too much and missed Marlin too much, so I had this kind of feeling. Thinking of Marlin, the man she loved deeply, she sighed. Things had developed like this because of this man. If she had not saved this man and returned home, would these things have happened? She didn't know. Ajur, Tan Lang, and Feng Wu quietly listened to Sheila's story. No one spoke to interrupt her. They had a feeling that the truth of the incident was about to emerge. Until late one night I couldn't sleep and got up to drink water. But I saw Marlin wearing a black robe walking into Master's study. I was worried that Marlin might know that Madame Marlin and Master Wenda were going to get married and came to find trouble with Master. So I quietly peeped through the unlocked door to see the scene in the study. Who would have thought that I would see something I would never forget for the rest of my life? Marlin took off his skin from his head to his feet. After taking off his skin, he turned into a stranger. That man was extraordinarily handsome, but he gave off a dangerous vibe. After that man took off his skin, he put on a new skin. This new skin was actually Master Wenda's skin. At that time I was stunned. I wanted to quietly return to the room, but who knew that I would accidentally make a sound? Master Wenda immediately ran out to check. I quickly hid in an empty guest room. At that time, a new maid happened to be secretly eating in the kitchen. She heard the noise and came out to check the situation, but she was discovered by Master Wenda. Master Wenda thought that she was the one who found out his secret, so he directly sucked the new maid's blood. I saw Master Wenda bury the new maid's body under the flower bed. I quietly returned to the room when Master Wenda went to bury the body. From that day on, I knew that Master Wenda was not the master that Madame Marlin loved. I didn't know who he was. I thought about hinting at Madame Marlin, but Madame Marlin was a simple woman. She didn't know how to hide her emotions. I was afraid that the devil would harm Madame Marlin if he found out the truth. After hesitating for a while, I decided not to tell Madame Marlin about it. How did Madame Marlin die? Was she killed because she found out Wenda's true face like you? A juror suddenly thought of Madame Marlin's death. His intuition told him that Madame Marlin's death must be related to this matter. Shira's expression stiffened, and then her eyes were full of regret. Madame Marlin's death was an accident. The day before Madame Marlin decided to divorce Master Wenda, Madame Marlin went to Master Wenda to talk about the custody of Miss Clara. At that time, before Master Wenda came down, I gave Madame Marlin some hints, hoping that she could find out that there was something wrong with Master Wenda. Then, she could report this matter to the city lord. That way, Madame Marlin would be saved, and the devil would also be arrested. Hearing this, Tan Lang sneered. Since you already knew that there was something wrong with Master Wenda, why didn't you go to the city lord's mansion to report it yourself? Instead, you hinted at Madame Marlin. If it weren't for you acting smart and hinting, Madame Marlin would have dissolved her marriage with the fake Wenda the next day and live a good life with her daughter. In the end, you are just a selfish woman. I'm just a maid. It's not that easy to see the city lord. If I reported it and was found out by that person, he would definitely kill me. Chapter 79. At first, Sierra felt a little guilty, but the more she spoke, the more she felt that she didn't do anything wrong. She was just a little maid. What could she do? What could she do? She only hinted to Madame Marin to protect herself and Madame. What did she do wrong? She didn't do anything wrong. You can't see the city lord, but you can go to the Star Hall for help. You don't have to go to the Star Hall in person. Just write a letter and send it out. You won't expose yourself. Don't say that you can't read. Even if they were civilians, the Empire allowed them to learn a certain amount of knowledge, so these servants actually knew how to write. I can't expose myself. Madam and I will be in danger. I can't. Sheila could only repeat those few words with a pale face. Every word was so weak that it couldn't hide her selfish and self-reliant nature. You deliberately hinted that this Master Wenda might be a fake in front of Madame Marlene, and then Madame Marlene wouldn't run to the fake Wenda to confront him, right? A juror interrupted her impolitely. No, that's not it. Madame Marin was just trying to find out when she was talking to Master. Perhaps Master noticed her. That night, I saw Master go out once, and the next day, I heard the news of Madame Marin's death. The reason why the fake Master framed Clara was because he was afraid that Clara would find out that he was a fake father sooner or later, so he took the initiative to gain the upper hand. Those old servants who had served the real Master Wenda for many years, I'm afraid that when he replaced the real Master one, they found all kinds of reasons to get rid of them. A juror said faintly. It was easy to understand why they got rid of those people because they were all old people who followed Wenda. No matter how good a person was at pretending to be another person, There would be a time when he would give himself away. That was why the fake drove away those old people who could easily see through the flaws. On the other hand, Madame Marlene had been using their relationship to cover up her change. Clara was originally the most troublesome because she was the daughter of Marlene and Wenda. Unless Clara was married off, there was no good reason to chase her away. When he killed Marlene, he had already thought of framing Carola. Once Carola became the murderer of her mother, she would have to spend the rest of her life in prison. Naturally, it would be impossible for her to go home and find out the truth that he was not the real Wenda. Sheila didn't say anything, obviously agreeing with the juror's guess. Please don't hurt our madam. Madam is really a good person. She doesn't even know that Master is a fake. Please don't hurt her, okay? Greed looked at her. Although he didn't want to admit it, although this girl was very selfish, she really wanted to protect Madame Tussaud. However, her actions caused many people to die because of her. If she didn't go to Marlin and give him a hint, maybe the real Wenda wouldn't have died. If she didn't go to Madame Marlene, then Madame Marlene wouldn't have been killed, and Clara wouldn't have been made the scapegoat. Although she was a loyal servant, she had played a major role in all these tragedies. Even the maid had died because of her. Greedy Wolf had always disliked people like her, who constantly sought death and caused the deaths of others. You don't know? You really don't know? Even you, the maid, could feel that something was wrong with Master Wenda before you found out the truth. As the fake's pillow, and also secretly loved the real Wenda for 12 years, how could she not notice it? A juror sneered. If Madame Tussaud didn't notice it at all, he wouldn't believe half a word. Hearing a juror's words, Sheila was stunned. She had never thought about this problem. Yes, if someone like her who didn't have much contact with Mr. Wenda could notice the problem, how could Madame Tussaud, who had always been secretly in love with Mr. Wenda, not notice it? Could it be that Madame Tussaud really noticed it? She just didn't say it out loud. This idea surprised Sheila. She always thought that she was the only one who knew the secret, but it turned out that Madame Tussaud also knew it. Take us to the fake. He has harmed so many people, it's time to pay back his debt. Greed's eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. Sheila obediently stepped forward to lead the way. She was now in a difficult situation. If these people didn't defeat the fake Master Wenda today and save her and Madame Tussaud, Master would only know that she betrayed him. She was afraid that she wouldn't be allowed to live. She didn't want to die like the maid who was sucked dry of blood. With Sheila leading the way, they were directly taken to the door of Wenda's study. At this time, the fake Wenda would be reading in the study. As for whether he was really reading or not, no one knew. Sheila took them to the door and ran to find Madame Tussaud. She wanted to take advantage of the fact that they were fighting to escape with Madame Tussaud. A juror and the others had already noticed Sheila's escape, but they didn't care. They were here to catch the stowaways. As for whether a maid wanted to escape or not, it had nothing to do with them. The door of the study was tightly closed. A juror and Fengwu exchanged a look, indicating that she should be careful. Fengwu nodded. Greed took the lead and opened the door and went directly into the study. When he opened the door, he saw Wenda sitting behind the desk with the book in his hand. Who are you? Why did you break into my manor? When the fake Wenda saw that someone had broken in, he immediately put down his book and a touch of vigilance appeared on his face. Your manor? How come I didn't know that Shura people can have real estate in the human world? Greed laughed twice as if he had heard a joke. How could you know? The fake Wenda was shocked. He had been perfectly hiding for so long. How could he be discovered? Haven't you been to the cave recently? Don't you know that your blood pool has been discovered? If Shura people wanted to live in the human world, they had to bathe in the blood of virgins every once in a while. The blood of virgins was a great tonic for Shura, allowing Shura to stay in the human world for a longer period of time. When the fake Wenda heard them talking about the cave, he knew that his identity was really exposed. It had been 3 years, and he had only been catching the civilian girls in the small villages because he was afraid of attracting the attention of the city lord. He didn't expect that he would still be discovered. If he had known, he wouldn't have been catching people in the vicinity of Frost City. He should have gone to other cities to find more virgins. Fortunately, Greed didn't know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he wouldn't even bother to talk nonsense and would directly start fighting. The fake Wenda's face was livid. I know that the two of you are here to investigate the truth of Marlene's case. How much money can Clara give you? I will give you 10 times. As long as you don't know about this, money is not a problem. Chapter 80. The fake Wenda still recognized the identity of Ajur and Fengwu. Although he had only met them once, he had only met them for a few days. It would take some time for him to forget them. Is it really okay to bribe us like this in front of the Star General? Ajur said as if it was unintentional. Star General. You are from the Star Hall. The fake Wenda turned pale with fright. He thought that it was just a busybody or an adventurer who had accepted a mission. He didn't expect that one of the 3 people in front of him was actually from the Star Hall. You finally thought of it. Ajur said gloatingly from the side. Damn it, why would someone from the Star Hall come here? The fake Wenda's face was ashen. It was obvious that meeting someone from the Star Hall was not a good thing for him. Show me the truth, show me. Just when the fake Wenda thought that he had some confidence in killing all 3 of them, a mirror suddenly appeared in Tan Lang's hand. This mirror was the dressing mirror that Tan Lang never left his side. This mirror was silver in color. It was inlaid with a few beautiful gems and the handle had exquisite and beautiful carvings. When Tan Lang used the mirror to shine on the fake Wenda suddenly screamed. His voice was full of fear and resentment. Ah! The fake Wenda's skin began to show signs of melting under the golden light emitted by the mirror. The fake Wenda screamed continuously. After a few minutes, the skin that belonged to Wenda finally turned into smoke and disappeared from this world. The Shura clan really specializes in handsome men and beautiful women. This face is much more handsome than Wenda's skin. It was also the first time that Ajur saw a real Shura. The legends about the Shura clan were all about how beautiful and handsome they were, and how cruel and bloodthirsty they were. He had seen how cruel and bloodthirsty they were, and he had also seen how handsome the Shura clan was. Although I don't know what your name is, the human world is not a place where the Shura clan should stay. Come with me. Tan Lang held the mirror handle and when he spoke, he was guarding against the other party's counterattack. Come with you. In your dreams. I want to see how powerful the Star Hall's Star Generals are, and whether or not they can catch me. Without the human skin draped over his body, the Shura who was impersonating Wenda unleashed all of his power. Blood and chi filled the entire study room, and within the blood and chi, there was an unconcealable killing intent. The blood chi in the room was getting thicker and thicker. Fengwu and the other 2's vision turned into a blood-red color. They couldn't see anything else. Kill. Blood soul kill. The blood mist that filled the sky turned into blood men. These blood men held swords made of blood and rushed towards Greed and the others. The bloody men had no thoughts and no sense of pain. They were just puppets with only killing in their hearts. Ha 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 ha. Let's see how you're going to break this blood soul. The Shura stood to the side with a smug look on his face. He seemed to be very confident in the blood soul he had conjured. It's actually the blood soul kill. Unfortunately, you met me. Greed smiled coldly and dodged the blood soul's attack. Fengwu and Ajur were also attacking the blood soul. This blood soul was made of blood and couldn't have a physical form. Therefore, Ajur and the others' attacks were destined to be ineffective. Fengwu used her small sword to slash at the blood soul. Although the blood soul scattered, it quickly gathered together and continued to attack. Ajur's magic attacks were also not very useful. Although he could make the blood soul's color fade a little, he still needed to attack a few times before he could destroy the blood soul. Purification, holy light illumination. Following Greed's incantation, the silver in his hand once again shot out a silver light. Under the illumination of this silver light, the blood souls in the room disappeared. That mirror can actually purify the blood soul. The Shura looked at Greed in disbelief. His gaze was as if he couldn't wait to snatch the mirror from Greed's hand and smash it into pieces. Binding curse, imprison him. Greed put away the mirror in his hand and formed a seal with both hands. Rays of red light drilled out from the ground and began to wrap around the Shura. Very quickly, the light turned into a cage and trapped the Shura inside. The Shura kept using his bare hands to slap the cage made of light, but he didn't succeed. Although the Shura couldn't break the cage in one hit, the cage kept shaking as if it would shatter in the next second. In order to stabilize this magic, Greed began to form seals with both hands. The cage that imprisoned the Shura became smaller and smaller, and the Shura's struggles became weaker and weaker. "No, you guys let him go." As a terrified voice entered his ears, Greed felt a pain in his back. Naturally, the magic was interrupted and he couldn't continue. The imprisoned Shura finally broke free from the magic cage. "Dusha." The Shura affectionately called out his lover's name. "Hurry up and leave. Don't let them catch you. Hurry up and leave." After Madame Dusha stabbed Greed in the back, she flew over and tightly held onto Fengwu and Ajur. She only wanted to fight for a chance for her beloved to escape. "I will come back for you, Dusha." The Shura took one last look at Madame Dusha and flew out the window. "Don't even think about leaving." Greed, who had already been stabbed, was very glad that Madame Dusha was just an ordinary woman. She didn't practice Do Chi and didn't know any magic. If she did, her chest would have been pierced and she wouldn't be able to keep her life. Because Dusha didn't have any strength, although she stabbed Greed, she didn't injure his vitals. It was only a flesh wound. Greed wouldn't let that despicable Shura go just because of a flesh wound. With a loud shout, Greed turned into a ray of light and chased after the Shura. "Xiao Wu, look after this woman." Ajur directly kicked Madame Tussauds chest, knocking her to the ground. Then he turned into a fiery red beam of light and chased after the two of them. "Don't hurt him, don't." Madame Dusha fell to the ground in pain and shouted out the window. "Madame, don't be like this. That person isn't Master Wenda. He's a monster." Sierra had followed behind Dusha. The way Dusha had attacked people with her sword was too crazy, so she didn't dare to get close. Now that Dusha had been subdued, she rushed over to support her. "No, he's not a monster. He's a man who loves me deeply. He did so many things for me. I can't just ignore him." Dusha pushed Sheila away and screamed in pain. "Madam, could it be that you already knew he was?" Sheila exclaimed in disbelief. She was still thinking about how to take her kind madam away from the claws of that demon. She didn't expect her madam to know all this time. Moreover, she was willing to be with that demon. In that case, wasn't it a joke that she wanted to protect her madam and take her away? It turned out that she knew everything. Chapter 81. Sierra looked at her gentle and beautiful madam in shock. It was hard to imagine how her madam, who usually couldn't even bear to hurt small animals, would make up her mind to be with a murderer. She suddenly realized that perhaps she had never understood her madam. She had always imagined her madam to be a weak little woman, but the truth told her that it was not the case at all. "Yes, I already knew that he wasn't Wenda. I didn't know at first, but later as we got together, I gradually realized that they were not the same person. He also knew that I found out that he was a fake Wenda, but he didn't kill me. Instead, he was deeply in love with me. In order to be with me, he killed a lot of people, even Wenda. He really loves me. I can't find anyone else in this world who loves me as much as he does. But he is a bad person, he is a murderer." Sierra shouted. This was the first time she had shouted at her madam. "What does it matter? He loves me so much. Everything he did was for love. We just love each other. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with us? Love is innocent." Dusha behaved like a woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for love. For her love, she was willing to sacrifice everything. "You are wrong. Your love is too selfish. Such a selfish love really tarnishes the word love." Pierre was followed by the city's army. A large group of soldiers rushed into the manor, and the fallen Dusha and maid Sierra were quickly surrounded. "Xiao Wu, sorry for being late." Pierre just coldly looked at the master and maid on the ground. His eyes were cold, and then turned to look at Fengwu. His eyes were as warm as spring. "Yes." Fengwu nodded and then walked to Dusha. "Wenda asked me to tell you that the thing he regretted most in his life was saving you. Wenda is already dead. Don't play tricks here." Dusha was shocked at first. Then she stared at Fengwu and shouted. She thought that Fengwu was deliberately scaring her. Fengwu was not in a good mood to scare Dusha. What she said was true. Wenda's soul had been wandering around the manor. "Do you want to see him?" Fengwu sees that she does not believe, and feels that it is necessary to prove his words. How could she prove it? Of course, it was to let the other party see Wenda's undead with their own eyes. However, she really didn't know how to see the undead. "If this madam really wants to see him, I have a way." An old man in a white magic robe appeared among the soldiers. This old man was none other than the necromancer who served the city lord's mansion. The old man took out a bottle of potion from his interspatial ring and sprayed it at the eyes of the two girls. Sheila and Dusha were ordinary people. How could they hide from a magician? After being sprayed by the unknown potion, the world in their eyes was still the same world, but they could see that not far from them, there was a soul covered in blood. This soul was very familiar. It was Wenda's soul. From his soul, one could see how miserable his death was. He was covered in blood flowing from head to toe. His clothes seemed to be soaked in blood. His eyes were wide open, and he looked very terrible. Ghost! Ghost! Dusha and Sheila screamed in fear. Their faces were pale and their bodies were trembling. Mr. Wenda, is it really you? It was not only Dusha and Sheila who sprayed the potion, but also Pierre. Pierre voluntarily sprayed the potion. He wanted to see Mr. Wenda, a very good elder in his memory. Tonight's action, Tan Lang naturally told the city lord's mansion. The city lord's mansion sent soldiers, mages and swordmasters to help Tan Lang. The city lord had sent out many masters, and Greedy Wolf had also used a special method to tell what had happened in the manor to the people guarding outside. After Greedy Wolf and Ajur chased out, the people sent by the city lord naturally rushed in to capture the woman who dared to protect the Shura and hurt the Greedy Wolf star. Pierre, it's been a long time. Is my Clara all right? Wenda was a gentle man. What he was most worried about was his daughter. As an undead, he knew that his daughter was in prison, but he couldn't do anything about it. He could only be trapped in this manner, unable to take a single step out. Clara's all right. Now that the identity of the Shura has been proven, Clara will be released soon. Pierre saw that the elder who had always been good to him had become like this. How could he not be sad? He didn't want Wenda to see his sadness, so he could only try his best to hide it carefully. Are you really Brother Wenda? Dusha couldn't believe it. She always knew that Wenda was dead, but she never dreamed that there would be such a thing as a soul after death. Moreover, Wenda's soul had never left. Dusha, if I could turn back time, I really wouldn't want to have anything to do with you. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that my family's tragedy would actually be because of you. Wenda's soul laughed bitterly. That bitter laugh made one's heart ache. No, it's not because of me. It has nothing to do with me. Dusha shook her head desperately. She was panicked and scared. Sheila had been hiding behind Dusha, not daring to say a word. She had already been scared silly. It's not you. You still don't want to admit it. If you didn't tell the Shura that Marlene might have discovered something, the Shura wouldn't have killed Marlene. You didn't want to live with my daughter, and you were afraid that she would find out the truth and disturb your happiness, so you complained to the Shura from time to time. That's why the Shura wanted to kill my daughter, and framed her with Marlene's matter. I saw all this clearly. You really disappointed me. I really shouldn't have saved you. I let the wolf into the house. I harmed Marlene, Clara, and myself. Wenda's soul shouted loudly. His face full of blood looked even more frightening. No, I didn't ask him to kill anyone. That's not what I want. My wish is very simple. I just want to live a happy life with the people who love me. Why can't anyone fulfill such a simple wish? Why? Dusha cried. Her voice was full of complaints about the unfairness of fate and endless grievances. Dusha's complaints and cries made everyone present once again see this woman's selfishness and coldness. Wenda had saved her family, but she turned around and caused her benefactor's family to be ruined. Now she was actually here crying and asking why others didn't help her. Chapter 82. Who did she think she was? The world revolved around her. If she wanted happiness, others would have to suffer. She was simply a lunatic. He really didn't know how the Shura liked such a woman. Where's Xiaowu? Why did she disappear? Pierre was shocked when he suddenly realized that Fengwu had disappeared. That little girl just left. She should have gone after the Shura. The old magician had seen Fengwu leave, but he hadn't said anything at that time. What? Not to mention the chaos caused by Fengwu's departure. Fengwu was currently using her qinggong to chase after the Shura. Ajur and Greedy Wolf had turned into streams of light and soared into the sky. Fengwu was naturally unable to use magic as a trash. The only thing she could use was her qinggong. Naturally, it was impossible for her to run as fast as Greedy Wolf and the others with Qinggong. She had asked the nearby flowers and grass along the way so that she didn't lose them. As she chased, she left Frost City and ran into a deep mountain. This mountain was some distance away from Frost City. Fengwu chased for an hour before arriving at this place. Because of the plants leading the way, Fengwu didn't go to the wrong place along the way. When Fengwu arrived at this mountain, a Jur and Greedy Wolf were fighting fiercely on the other side of the mountain. The result of the two fighting against one was naturally needless to say. The evil Shura was chained up by Greedy Wolf and was prepared to be escorted back to the arbitration tribunal the next morning for arbitration. Fengwu still didn't know about this. She was very busy now. It turned out that when Fengwu chased after a Jur and Greedy Wolf, she actually found a hot spring. The hot spring water made Fengwu's eyes light up. It was as if she had returned to Mount Yuehua. There was also such a hot spring on Mount Yuehua. At that time she would soak in the hot spring every winter. The hot spring on Mount Yuehua was not an ordinary hot spring. Fengwu's master had spent a lot of effort to plant herbs near the hot spring and guide the medicinal power into the hot spring. Soaking in the hot spring could not only eliminate fatigue, but also strengthen the body and prolong life. Now that she finally saw a hot spring in another world, Fengwu felt as if she had returned to Mount Yuehua. She carefully looked around and found that no one was around. Fengwu girl took off her dress, tied her hair up, and then went into the water naked. It's so comfortable. Fengwu's expressionless face flushed, making her look even cuter. The little girl completely forgot about a Jur and Greedy Wolf. She didn't think that Fengwu chased after them because she was worried about them. Fengwu always knew that a Jur and Greedy Wolf were very strong, so she wasn't worried. She chased after them because she didn't want to stay with Dusa and Sheila. Fengwu rarely hated someone, and Dusa and Sheila just happened to annoy Fengwu. Because she hated them, she didn't want to stay with them. That was why she went to find a Jur and Greedy Wolf. Now that she found another hot spring that was very similar to the one on Mount Yuehua, the girl immediately put aside her original plan of finding a Jur. What she wanted to do the most now was to soak in the hot spring. Soaking in the hot spring, Fengwu began to miss home. She missed her master. She missed the cute animals on Mount Yuehua. She missed the grass and trees on Mount Yuehua. As she thought about it, her eyes turned red. She forced back the tears in her eyes. She didn't want to cry. Her master said that she was a strong girl and an excellent swordswoman. There was no need for tears in a swordsman's world. Thinking about her master's words, Fengwu buried her head in the water and let the hot spring cover her head. She soaked in the water and held her breath. She stayed in the water for 10 minutes before she poked her head out of the water. But when she poked her head out, Fengwu froze. There was another person in front of her, someone she didn't know. I didn't know there was someone here. I'm sorry, I'll leave now. The young man wanted to take a good bath, but he didn't expect to see someone in the water. It was a little girl. The young man's face turned red. Although there were many girls who liked him, he had never been close to any of them. Now that he was bathing with a girl he didn't know, the young man was embarrassed. The young man's white face was red. He didn't know if it was because he was shy or because he was soaking in the hot spring. He walked to the edge of the hot spring in a panic. Just as he was about to put on his clothes, he realized that the girl was staring at him without blinking. Can you turn around or close your eyes? I need to put on my clothes. If the girl's eyes weren't as clean as the holy spring water, the young man would have thought that he had met a female pervert. Fengwu stared at the young man for a while. He didn't know what she was thinking. Suddenly, she raised her hand and splashed a large amount of water at the young man. The young man reflexively covered his eyes with his hands. At this moment, Fengwu directly activated her internal energy and jumped out of the water. With a wave of her small hand, the clothes on the shore automatically flew over and covered Fengwu's body. By the time the young man put down his hand, Fengwu had already put on her clothes and flew to the shore. You can continue soaking. I'm done. The girl looked at the young man who was still soaking in the water with half of his chest exposed. The young man's body seemed to emit a pure light under the moonlight. His skin was faintly red because he had soaked in the hot spring. Coupled with the young man's beautiful appearance, it was simply tempting to commit a crime. Thank you. The young man was at a loss. It seemed that it was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Under normal circumstances, it would be the boys who took the initiative to retreat in such a situation. However, today the girl gave in to him. This feeling was really strange. Is there anything else? The young man thought that the black-haired girl in front of him would leave after speaking. Bai Jing and the others were in an awkward situation. However, it seemed that he was the only one who felt awkward. To the young man's surprise, Feng Wu did not leave after saying those words. Instead, she walked up to him and stared unblinkingly at the young man who was still half submerged in the water with her large black eyes. Please marry me. The girl looked at the young man in front of her with a serious face. What she said made the young man stunned. If the girl looked at him with a shy or admiring face and said these words, he would think that the girl had fallen in love with him at first sight. However, the girl in front of him didn't look shy, nervous or afraid of being rejected. Her eyes were very calm and serious. If it wasn't for her serious eyes, he would really think that he was being teased. Bang! With a sound, a fiery red figure fell directly from the sky and broke the trunk of a tree. Chapter 83. I didn't expect Xiao Wu to be so bold. When Tan Lang and Ajur flew over with the Shura, they sensed Feng Wu's presence. When they descended, they heard Feng Wu's shocking words. This caused Ajur to fall from the sky. If there wasn't a thick layer of snow on the ground, he would probably be the first unlucky person to fail and fall to his death. Sorry, I'm not thinking about marriage right now. The young man thought for a while about how to refuse without hurting her, but in the end, he still said it. Oh, Feng Wu nodded and didn't say anything else. That's it? Don't you need to say anything more, girl? Tan Lang thought to himself in exasperation. However, Xiao Wu's taste was really good. The young man in front of her wasn't an ordinary person. Who knew how many noble ladies wanted to do something with the young man in front of them, but none of them succeeded. Go Xiao Wu. Brother Tan Lang supports you. You must take him down. Raya, it seems like you came at the wrong time. Tan Lang ignored Ajur who just got up from the snow. He pretended that he had just passed by and walked over with a sneaky smile. Senior Tan Lang. The young man already knew who it was, but he didn't say it out loud because he didn't want things to get weirder. He didn't expect things to develop in an even weirder direction. You know this guy? Ajur looked at the young man who was still soaking in the water with an unfriendly expression. The more he looked, the more he felt like his sister was being kidnapped by a pretty boy. He's your senior, Notre Dame du Starlight's fifth-year chief student Ming Shi. Tan Lang looked at the dance and then looked at Ming Shi. His smile was very annoying. Why is Ming Shi senior here? Although Ajur was angry that this guy seduced Feng Wu, he didn't rush up to challenge the fifth-year student. Although he didn't rush up to challenge him, his tone wasn't very nice. Can you let me get up and get dressed first? Ming Shi said somewhat helplessly. He had never been so embarrassed in his life. The first time he was proposed to by a girl he didn't know, he was seen by his senior. At the same time, he was seen by a very unfriendly junior. He was almost certain that as long as he left this place, the scene of him being proposed to would definitely spread to every corner of the Star Hall. As for whether the Notre Dame du Starlight would be publicized to everyone at the same time, it would depend on whether this junior brother in front of him had a big mouth or not. Ajur glared at him unkindly. He didn't have any intention of turning around or closing his eyes. Tan Lang crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking like he didn't want him to get dressed. The girl who proposed to him was staring at him with a pair of big black and white eyes. He didn't know if she heard what he said. In order to not let himself be in such an awkward position, Ming Shi learned from Feng Wu. He waved his hand and a large amount of water splashed towards the three people. Ajur and Tan Lang didn't expect this move and were immediately drenched in water. However, Feng Wu's reaction was unexpectedly fast. She directly took a few steps back and wasn't splashed by the water. You despicable guy. It's ice and snow, and you're splashing water on us. Ajur was so angry that he felt like his hair was about to smoke. He wiped the water off his head and wanted to rush over and scold him. However, when he looked forward, he saw that the guy who was supposed to be in the water was already standing neatly not far away from the three of them. The young man was wearing a blue and white robe. He stood under the moonlight with a smile on his face. His short golden hair emitted a soft glow under the moonlight. His whole person seemed to be surrounded by the moonlight, looking sacred and inviolable. Even Ajur, who was a man, had to admit that Fengwu's taste was really good. This senior brother named Mingxi in front of him was as beautiful as the moon goddess. His beauty wasn't like Tanlang's. It was so beautiful that it was hard to tell his gender. No one would mistake Mingxi's gender. Although he was as beautiful as the moonlight, no one would mistake his gender. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it when we return to the academy. After saying that, a golden light rushed into the sky and disappeared. If it wasn't for the flying speed of the Imperial Sky technique that revealed his helplessness, people would really think that he had something to do and left first. As soon as Mingxi left, Ajur flicked Fengwu's forehead. You actually proposed to a man? You're still so young. Why are you proposing to such a young girl? Fengwu covered her forehead with grievance. I'm not young anymore. I'm already the mother of a baby. That makes sense. I actually have nothing to say. This was a sentence that directly appeared in Ajur's mind. Xiao Wu, you can't judge a person by his appearance. You have to look at his inner self, okay? What if he's a bad person? Wouldn't your life be ruined? You have to know that a woman's marriage is like a second reincarnation. If you don't choose the right husband, you'll cry for the rest of your life. Tanlang also talked about life with Fengwu in the manner of a life mentor. Is Senior Mingxi a bad person? Fengwu blinked and asked. No. Although she wanted to say yes, that guy seemed to be a good husband candidate. He didn't smoke, gamble, or play with women. He was simply one of the best. Then it proves that Xiao Wu didn't choose the wrong one. Fengwu said to Tanlang seriously. Tanlang was speechless. For the first time Tanlang was unable to say a word. Fengwu and Ajur returned to Pierre's small hotel. The next day the two, together with Tanlang, brought the Shura to submit the mission. After confirming that the mission was completed, Clara was also acquitted and successfully reunited with Pierre. Mr. Wenda was sent to reincarnate by the necromancer, and Liddy chose the path of spiritual cultivation. The necromancer of the city lord's mansion was very good. After asking Liddy if she was willing to follow him, although Liddy refused in the end, the necromancer was not angry. Instead, he told Liddy the method of spiritual cultivation so that she could practice it on her own. However, dark necromancers liked Liddy because her soul purity was high enough, and she was an undead without a master. In the end, when they left Frost City, Liddy signed an equal contract with Fengwu. Fengwu had always been simple-minded and would not use the undead to do bad things, while Liddy did not like to be restrained. Although the two had signed a contract, it did not restrict each other in any way. The matter of Frost City was settled. Fengwu and Ajur had no interest in the sacred beast egg, or the tomb of the ancient magician. The two just wanted to return to Central City as soon as possible. When they returned to Central City this time, 3 people and 1 spirit traveled together. Because Liddy had signed a contract with Fengwu, she could already enter Fengwu's spiritual space. Naturally, she did not need to pay. The teleportation fee for Fengwu and Ajur was paid by Tanlang. Just like Ajur said, this guy was so poor that he only had money left. Chapter 84. After returning to the Central City, Tanlang went straight to the Astral Hall to submit the quest, while Ajur and Fengwu went to the Adventurers Guild to submit the quest item and collect the money. The quest this time was very troublesome and involved the ferocious Shuras. However, they only received 700 gold coins. When the two returned to the school, they looked at the rankings and realized that they didn't even make it into the top 10. For the mysterious prize that their teacher mentioned, these students worked very hard. The first place was the female magus named Zicheng. She had already earned tens of thousands of gold coins. Her speed of earning money was definitely the fastest among all of them. The second place was Irene. She also earned tens of thousands of gold coins, but she still couldn't compare to Zicheng. The third place to the 10th place only earned thousands of gold coins, not even 10,000. Ajur turned to Fengwu and sighed. The competition was fierce. The Fengwu girl was still expressionless. Ajur felt that it was boring. The two waved goodbye and returned to their own dorms. When they returned to the dorm, they found that the others were not there. Fengwu and Ajur decided to rest for a few days before continuing the quest. They were not interested in the reward for first place. They just wanted to complete the quest. When the other 3 people in the dorm came back, they found that Fengwu had returned. Silda and Anika asked Fengwu about what happened to her in the past few days. Only Rika seemed uninterested. She didn't even talk to Fengwu. Fengwu was not a talkative person, so she didn't mind Rika's cold treatment. After Rika went upstairs, Anika awkwardly apologized to Fengwu. Xiaowu, don't mind her. Rika hasn't been earning money well recently, so she's not in a good mood. She didn't mean to ignore you. Because they were both mages and noble ladies, Rika and Rika had always had a good relationship. That was why she apologized on Rika's behalf. Oh, Fengwu just nodded. I don't mind. Rika carefully stared at Fengwu, wanting to see if she was lying. But after staring for a long time, Fengwu still had that stoic face, and she couldn't see any emotions at all. In the end, Rika decisively gave up. Rika is really strange. Water magicians are clearly the most profitable profession, but her work has never been successful. I really don't understand what she's trying to do. Selder had always been a straightforward person, so he couldn't stand Rika's spoiled temper. She's just not used to it yet. Annika found an excuse for Rika. Not used to it. What's there to not used to it? She's not the only noble lady in the entire school. Everyone else is doing well, and she's the only one who can't put down her airs. Does she think she's a princess? Every time her work doesn't go well, she puts on a sour face in the dorm, and when she's outside she acts like she's been wronged. Do you know? One day one of my teammates even asked me if someone in our dorm was bullying Rika. At that time I was so angry. It was so annoying. Selder's personality had always been carefree. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't stand it, he wouldn't have said that. Rika didn't do it on purpose. Annika didn't know what to say. She also knew that Rika and Selder's relationship had always been superficial. If she didn't do it on purpose, then I really don't know if someone would come running to teach me a lesson and accuse me of trying to murder her. Xiaowu, you have to be more careful in the future. Don't fall into someone's trap. In short, someone doesn't even need to say a word to harm others. Just a look is enough to make them suffer. Selder had been feeling depressed for a long time. Usually only the 3 of them were in the dorm and Annika and Rika had a good relationship. Even if she was an idiot, she wouldn't talk to Annika about this. Now that Fengwu was back, Selder finally felt like she had found an ally. Annika looked at the second floor and sighed. Fortunately, Rika didn't hear it. Otherwise, there might have been a big fight. The next day, Fengwu woke up and went to the teacher to cancel her leave for class. Mr. James asked her about her experience in accepting missions during her leave. Fengwu honestly recounted everything that had happened in the past few days. Fengwu wasn't a qualified storyteller. She only knew how to tell the story in detail and didn't use any adjectives. Although Fengwu didn't use any fancy words, just by hearing the word Shura, it was obvious that the mission Fengwu did this time wasn't simple. Moreover, she even met one of the 28-star generals, the Greedy Wolf Star. The past few days were really quite exciting. After successfully canceling her leave for class, Fengwu returned to class. Although the students in the class were busy earning money and doing missions, they had to be present during class every day. Except for those who went out for missions, everyone in the class was present. The first lesson was general history of the mainland. This kind of history class was the easiest for students to fall asleep. More than half of the students in the class were about to fall asleep. Fengwu, on the other hand, was staring at the blackboard in high spirits and didn't move at all. She was so serious that even the teacher was moved. There was a student in this school who respected history so much. What a good kid. When class finally ended, Fengwu rubbed her eyes. This class wasn't fun at all. It was so tiring. Hey, was general history of the continent interesting? You listen so seriously. A boy with green buzz cut moved his chair next to Fengwu and asked curiously. It wasn't interesting. Fengwu answered seriously. Then why did you listen so seriously? The boy rolled his eyes. Shouldn't I pay attention during class? Fengwu said. This was what the Ajur said. He told her what she should do during class, such as paying attention and studying. You're right. The boy was speechless. He scratched his head and returned to his seat. After 2 classes, Fengwu took her textbook and left the classroom. However, when she passed by a small road with less people, she saw a scene. "Senior, this is my sincerity. Please accept it." A young girl with a red face held a pink letter and handed it to the boy with both hands. The boy also blushed and accepted the letter with embarrassment. The girl covered her face and ran away shyly. "That senior is really lucky. Why haven't I received a girl's love letter before?" A sigh sounded behind Fengwu. Fengwu turned around and recognized that it was her classmate. Moreover, this was the boy who spoke to her just now. "What is a love letter?" Fengwu tilted her head. It sounded very mysterious. If the boy standing behind Fengwu could hear her thoughts, he would definitely tell her that she was thinking too much. The so-called love letter is a confession letter. It's something to convey your feelings to the person you like. Rubbing his chin, the boy pondered for a moment and explained. Chapter 85. Fengwu girl didn't understand what a confession was. What's a confession? In Fengwu's world, people were more reserved. Words like confession had never appeared in that world before. It's to tell your feelings to the person you like. That's called a confession. The youth was a little helpless. How could there be someone who didn't know such a simple thing? If it wasn't for the innocent and serious look on the girl's face, he really would have thought that he had been played. Do you have to write a love letter to express your feelings? Fengwu thought of Ming Shi. Was it because she didn't write a love letter to him that he didn't want to accept her? The youth was stumped by this question. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Not necessarily. But girls are usually more shy. The most common way to express their feelings is to write a love letter." Fengwu nodded, indicating that she understood. She began to reflect on herself. Was the reason why Senior Ming Shi didn't accept her because she wasn't reserved enough? Fengwu, who had never pursued a man before, couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she racked her brains. "Right, MMOA. We'll be friends from now on. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me." The green-haired youth laughed heartily. "I'm Fengwu." Fengwu introduced herself. "I know. Fengwu lives in the same dorm as that tomboy Silda. Silda already told us." Emogue and Silda were on good terms. "I'll ask you again," Fengwu suddenly said. "Ah, ask what?" Emogue couldn't wrap his head around it. "Didn't you say that I can ask you if I have any questions in the future?" Fengwu looked at him pitifully. The word liar was clearly written on her originally expressionless face. "You're talking about this?" "Sure, I welcome you to ask me any time." Emogue hurriedly nodded. He was afraid that the little girl in front of him would suddenly burst into tears. If that happened, he would have committed a great sin. Ever since he was young, he had never had the experience of making a girl cry. His older sister often said that a man who could make a woman cry would never be able to marry a wife in this lifetime. Emogue thought that he was a good young man and would definitely not have to worry about a wife in the future. But now that a young girl was about to cry because of him, the young man panicked. "You must not cry," the young man advised. "As long as you don't cry, even if you become 100,000 wise, I will answer you." "I'm not crying." Fengwu blinked her eyes. Other than her eyes being a little red, she didn't seem to have any tears. Seeing that Fengwu wasn't crying, Emogue finally let out a sigh of relief. The two chatted for a bit longer before parting ways. Emogue's team still had a mission to complete, so unlike Fengwu and Ajur, they weren't on vacation. After Emogue left, Fengwu walked back to the dormitory alone. She happened to bump into Ajur, who had also just finished class. Ajur saw Fengwu and naturally raised his hand to greet her. "Xiaowu, look at how listless you are. Who bullied you?" He asked this jokingly. He didn't believe that the savage girl would be bullied by anyone. "No one bullied me. I was thinking about something." Fengwu shook her head. "What I want to ask is, what are you thinking about?" Ajur was really curious now. In his eyes, the Fengwu girl was a girl who couldn't be any more innocent. Did this girl also reach the age of being troubled? "Do you know how to write a love letter?" Fengwu decided to ask her friend for help at a time like this. "A love letter? Who are you writing it to?" Ajur was shocked. He couldn't believe that this girl was already at the age of writing a love letter. "Senior Ming Shi," Fengwu said seriously. "You really want to marry him?" Ajur didn't expect that Fengwu still hadn't given up. After being rejected by Ming Shi in front of everyone, Fengwu didn't appear to be sad. He thought that the girl didn't care at all. Who knew that it wasn't that she didn't care, but that she didn't take the rejection to heart at all. She even planned to continue working hard. I've always been serious. Fengwu wasn't happy. She felt that her character was being doubted. Master had said that no matter what she did, she had to do it seriously. She had always been obedient. How could she not be serious? Okay, I said the wrong thing. Our Xiaowu has always been a serious and good child. Although these words don't sound good, I still have to tell you that Ming Shi's status as a student is very unusual. It's basically impossible for the two of you to be together. It's better to give up on him. You see, there are so many handsome men in our school. I'm sure you can quickly find someone to your liking. Ajur really said this for the sake of Fengwu. Fengwu's status and Ming Shi's status really didn't have much of a possibility, unless Ming Shi loved her to the point that he couldn't be without her. But as far as he knew, Ming Shi wasn't a man who would go crazy for love. Although he seemed to smile warmly at everyone and always had a good temper, in fact, his heart wasn't easy to open to people. He really didn't want Fengwu to be hurt. In his eyes, Fengwu was a rare good girl. The world in her eyes was very clean. Looking into her eyes, it was like looking at a pure land that people couldn't bear to destroy. I want him to be the baby's father, Fengwu said firmly. Does it have to be him? Ajur asked a little helplessly. Yes. All right then. If there comes a day when you can't hold on, you can always lean on my shoulder. Ajur also knew that although Fengwu was naive to the point that she didn't have common sense, she had her own persistence. Once she made a decision, it wouldn't be so easy to change it. It seemed that he had to let her be rejected a few more times. Then perhaps Fengwu would have no choice but to give up. How do I write a love letter? Fengwu didn't forget that she was troubled by this question. The corner of Ajur's mouth twitched. He tried hard to recall the contents of the love letters he had received. After thinking for a while, he organized his words and said, "Wait a minute. I'll go and see if I can find a sample of a love letter." Ajur just remembered that he had never received a love letter from a girl. It wasn't that no one wrote to him, but that he never read love letters. Now Fengwu asked him how to write a love letter. How would he know? After asking Fengwu to wait for Ingju, Ajur quickly ran to find his roommate, the playboy, who was said to receive an average of 30 love letters a day. "You're back. Do you want to have dinner together?" Luffy had just changed into a luxurious magic robe and was combing his hair. Seeing that Ajur had returned, he habitually asked, "What is it? Where's the love letter? Do you have any love letters? Just give me one." Ajur pulled the comb out of Luffy's hand and asked him politely, "Ha, what do you want a love letter for? 2 days ago, so many girls sent you love letters but you didn't want them. Now you're asking me for them? I don't like men." Luffy was scared and took a few steps back. He was a straight man. He couldn't be misunderstood as having that kind of hobby. Chapter 86. Don't worry. Even if all the women in the world died, this young master wouldn't fall for a show-off like you. Ajur glared at him disdainfully. Luffy was about to say something when a knock came from the door. Ajur went to open the door and saw a slightly chubby girl standing outside. The girl looked like a new student. She was wearing a mage's uniform and had freckles on her face. Her eyes were a little small and her mouth was a little big. In short, she didn't look like a beautiful girl at all. What's the matter? She was most likely looking for a show-off Luffy. Ever since school started almost every day, there would be girls coming to Luffy's dormitory to give him love letters, food, or to ask for a date. Every day the same thing would happen. Luffy, this gigolo, was proud of it, which made the other people in his dormitory want to beat him up. "Ajur, please accept my kind intentions." The girl blushed as she handed over the love letter that she had edited more than 10 times with her hands. Love letter. Ajur wanted to refuse, but when he thought of Fengwu who was still waiting for him, he grabbed the love letter in his hand. The originally clean and tidy envelope was wrinkled. However, the girl didn't care about whether the love letter was wrinkled or not. She was now smashed by happiness. Ajur actually accepted her love letter, accepted her love letter, accepted her love letter. This sentence kept repeating endlessly. Ajur only wanted the love letter. Once he got the love letter, he closed the door. With a bang, the door was shut tight. The girl, who was still in a daze, was shut outside. No. No way, you actually accepted the love letter. Could it be that you like this type? It was too shocking. This guy had broken the hearts of many girls. The number of love letters that Ajur had written was definitely more than his. The reason why there were fewer people looking for him was because this guy didn't have any manners. He often said whatever he wanted and did things that hurt girls' hearts. After hurting so many girls' hearts, he was finally won over by a piece of fat pork. Luffy felt that there was something wrong with the way he opened his eyes today. Otherwise, how could he have seen such a strange scene? Humph. With a disdainful snort, Ajur ignored her and sat down on the sofa to start reading. Ajur probably never thought that the first love letter he read in his life was because he wanted to learn how to write one. If someone had told him in the past that he would read a girl's love letter for such a reason, he would have kicked that person until he couldn't take care of himself. Dear Ajur, I still remember the first time we met. You were like a ball of fire that lit up my life. That day, I was being mocked by the boys, but you appeared in front of me like a god. With just a wave of your hand, those boys who were mocking me were thrown to the ground by fire magic. When all the boys were laughing at me for hurting me, you were so different. I know you're a person who cares about his heart. You're a real man. I love you so much. I love you so much that I can't pull myself away. I love you so much that the sky is falling and the earth is cracking. I am the woman who loves you the most in this world. Please accept my love. Wei Nath's corner of his mouth twitched as he read the letter that made him want to beat someone up. He directly burned the letter. It almost made him vomit breakfast and burn the love letter. After burning the letter, he got up, walked to the door, opened it and closed it. After Ajur left, Luffy came back to his senses. Did this guy like that piece of fat pork? Was he going to go on a date with that piece of fat pork? Luckily, Ajur didn't have time to care about him. Otherwise, he would have let him have a taste of his fireball. Fengwu sat on the bench and saw Ajur running over. Her eyes lit up. Do you know? Fengwu's eyes were so bright that Ajur couldn't bear to look at them. Yes. When writing a love letter, you first have to write the other party's name. Then, you have to write the first time you met each other, the reason why you like the other party, and the purpose of writing the love letter. Finally, you have to write your own name. That's it. You can write it like that. Ajur said with a firm expression. He was using Wei Na's love letter model. Did this guy think that this was the only way to write a love letter in the world? The next day, when Emogue rushed to class early in the morning, he saw that Fengwu had gone to class earlier than him. She was sitting in her seat and writing something. Emogue was curious about what Fengwu was writing, so he walked over and asked her a question. Xiaowu, what are you writing? The teacher didn't give you any homework yesterday, right? Emogue started to recall yesterday's class. He wondered if he had forgotten that there was homework to do. I'm writing a love letter. The teacher didn't give me any homework. Fengwu answered both of his questions. But when the two words love letter came out, the entire classroom, which had been chatting, all pricked up their ears. They wanted to hear who the love letter was for. Young lady, do you have to be so loud about writing a love letter? Ajur glared at the people who were eavesdropping. Some of them finally quieted down a little. Then take your time writing. Although he really wanted to peek at the young lady's love letter, it was immoral to do so. Even though he was a little disappointed. At noon in the student cafeteria, Emogue invited Fengwu to lunch. He was actually curious about who Fengwu wanted to give the love letter to. Was it someone he knew? Or was it someone from her class? In any case, Emogue was dying of curiosity. After lining up to get their food, the two sat down to eat. Fengwu's eating speed once again shocked Emogue. He had only eaten a third of his food, but Fengwu had already finished it. Most importantly, Fengwu's portion was even more than his. What kind of speed was this? Young lady, are you sure you're a girl? Aren't you a man in a girl's skin? After the young lady finished eating, she sat obediently to the side and waited for Ajur to finish eating. Just then, two handsome men came down from upstairs. One of them had blonde hair and blue eyes. His expression was gentle, and he was as beautiful and gentle as the moon. The other young man had silver white hair, silver eyes, and a handsome face that looked as if it was about to freeze, causing people to feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. His entire body was filled with a kind of ascetic beauty, and just like the other golden-haired young man, He was unforgettable. Chapter 87. Look, it's student Ming-Shi and Senior Skycliff. Senior Ming-Shi is so beautiful. How can there be such a good-looking person in this world? A girl slumped on the table. There's also Senior Skycliff. Senior Skycliff is the man closest to becoming a sword god in 100 years. He's so amazing. Another girl said in admiration. Senior Ming-Shi is the top student of the 5th grade, and Senior Skycliff is the top student of the 4th grade. Both of them are peerless powerhouses. Don't you think they're a good match when they stand together? This caused a series of screams. Emogue was eating when he looked up at the man who had created the terrifying sound waves. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Everyone had a different life. Why wasn't he as popular? Was it because he wasn't the top student of the 5th grade? Look, after the terrifying sound waves, someone went up to hand him a love letter. As expected, popular men were different. But why did the girl who handed him the letter look so familiar? Holy shit! Isn't that Fengwu? The scene was like this. When our Fengwu girl saw Ming-Shi, her eyes lit up. She didn't even notice how popular the boy she wanted to confess to was. She just rushed up with the love letter she had prepared. Fengwu girl held the love letter in her hand and walked up to the two handsome seniors, blocking their path. Senior Ming-Shi, please accept it. She imitated the girl who had handed him the love letter, and held it out with both hands with a serious expression. Ming-Shi immediately recognized the girl in front of him as the one who had proposed to him that night. For a moment he didn't know how to react. He thought that the girl would back down after he made things clear that day, but reality told him that he had been too naive. He didn't know whether to accept the love letter or not. If he didn't accept it, the girl would lose face in front of so many people, so he still accepted the love letter. He accepted the love letter, which caused the crowd to scream. Fortunately, Ming-Shi was used to the days where he could attract screams wherever he went. No matter how loud the screams were, he didn't feel anything. But why was the girl in front of him still here? Shouldn't she have run away shyly after he received the love letter? The truth told Ming-Shi that he was thinking too much. Not only did the girl not run away, but there was no sign of shyness on her face. Is there anything else? Ming-Shi's gentle smile stiffened. You haven't seen it yet. Fengwu looked at Ming-Shi stubbornly, with a manner of, I won't leave until you finish watching it. Was a love letter supposed to be read in person? Ming-Shi suddenly felt that maybe he shouldn't have accepted the love letter in the first place. It was too late to say anything now. Chun Mo wanted to open the love letter to take a look, but he found that the girl's love letter was very different from the ones he usually received. Others used aromatherapy paper and a cute pink envelope for love letters, but the Fengwu girl used an ordinary piece of paper that she usually used for homework. Looking at the size of the paper and the tear marks on it, all of these told him that this so-called love letter was written on a random piece of paper torn from some homework book. This was really the most scrupulous love letter he had ever received, the youth thought silently. What was even better was that this love letter didn't even have an envelope, only a folded piece of paper. No, it was a folded piece of homework paper. Looking at the contents inside, the first row said, Senior Ming-Shi. The second row said, the first time we met was in a hot spring. The third row said, you look like my master. Please be my baby's father. The fourth row said, please marry me. The fifth row said, Fengwu. This thing was a love letter. Ming-Shi suddenly felt a headache. This love letter with no format and no content was probably the shortest and most strange love letter in the history of love letters. You still haven't given me an answer? Fengwu girl reminded him with bright eyes. She had already written a love letter, so this should be reserved enough, right? Senior Ming-Shi should agree to it. Sorry, I can't agree to it. The always considerate Ming-Shi really didn't want to hurt a girl's heart in front of so many people, but the girl looked at him so stubbornly, it seemed that he couldn't not give an answer. Although all of this was the girl's own choice, no matter what, he still hurt this girl in front of so many people. Ming-Shi felt a little guilty and didn't know how to face the girl in front of him. The scene of the girl being heartbroken didn't happen. After the girl was rejected, all the students in the cafeteria who were eating at the same time as the aunties who were eating at the same time thought that Fengwu would cry and leave, but she didn't. The girl calmly took back the love letter Ming-Shi had handed to her. Oh, she calmly responded, no sadness visible on her face. Finally, she turned around and left. She didn't cry at all, nor did she feel sad at all. She just left like that. The entire cafeteria was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Girl, are you sure you're here to confess and not to play games? Emogue, whose jaw almost dropped to the ground, reacted the moment Fengwu left. He stopped eating and chased after Fengwu like a gust of wind. They were classmates, so he couldn't let this innocent girl do anything stupid. Xiao Wu, wait. Emogue used the speed of a 100-meter race to catch up. He put his hand on the girl's shoulder from behind and turned her around to comfort her. Xiao Wu, one failure is nothing. Even if Senior Mingxi doesn't accept you, there will be other good men who will. Don't be too sad, don't cry. He didn't even see the girl's expression before he started to comfort her. I'm not crying. Fengwu looked at Emogue seriously. She didn't want to be mistaken as a girl who liked to cry. Master had said that crying was the behavior of the weak. She was Master's disciple and a natural-born expert. She wouldn't cry. Yeah, she really didn't cry. Her eyes didn't even turn red. Emogue obediently shut up. Why is it that even though I wrote a love letter and confessed in a subtle way, he still won't accept me? Fengwu's voice was filled with questions and confusion. She had clearly done as Emogue said. So why was Senior Mingxi still unwilling to accept her? The girl couldn't think of a reason, so she could only ask the youth in front of her for help. How did you write the love letter? Emogue had always been curious. When he saw the love letter written on the homework paper, he instantly felt like he was going to Sparta. Here. The girl didn't have any thoughts of protecting her privacy, and generously handed over her love letter. You're really showing it to me? That's not too good. Although he said that, his hands didn't slow down at all as he took the love letter. When he opened it, Emogue instantly felt uncomfortable. This was a love letter. This was a love letter. He suddenly felt that it was completely normal for Senior Mingxi to reject Fengwu. He believed that no one would accept such a strange love letter. Chapter 88. Who taught you to write this? This person definitely had a grudge against Fengwu. At this moment, a juror, who was eating the delicacies brought back by his roommates, suddenly sneezed. Is someone thinking of me? A juror taught me. Fengwu girl immediately betrayed her teammate. The fire magus who teamed up with you for a mission? Emogue, who had a good relationship with a juror, had naturally heard of him. That's him. Fengwu girl nodded. Don't write any more love letters in the future. There are many ways to pursue love. We'll try something else in the future, Emogue said after a few seconds of silence. Don't. Fengwu girl's eyes sparkled. She was full of energy again. Yes. Let's go. We'll slowly study it. There's definitely a way. Emogue didn't even consider that he himself had never had a girlfriend before, and now he wanted to teach her how to pursue a boyfriend. Young man, are you sure you have a way? Regardless of whether Emogue had a way or not, the Fengwu girl was finally comforted. Mingxi, I heard that someone gave you a love letter in the cafeteria today. How was it? How was that girl? She was really brave in front of so many people. The girl who spoke was wearing the Swordmaster department's uniform. Her figure was hot and extremely eye-catching. She was Elena, a fifth-year student of the Swordmaster department. She was a famous beauty in the Swordmaster department. She had a head of long wavy burgundy hair, a pair of red eyes and a sexy figure. Men were guaranteed to fall for her the moment they saw her. But who would have known that such a beauty was actually a fiery beauty with a fiery temper? This woman had once kicked a suitor's balls until they exploded. She had also kicked the thighs of her pursuers. Although there were so many men who were interested in her that they could circle the Central Plains, none of them really dared to date her. This woman was too violent, and no one wanted their balls to be kicked until they exploded. At this moment, this great beauty with a hot figure and a seductive look was sitting on the sofa in Mingxi's dormitory with a face full of interest. Obviously, she was very interested in the love letter confession at the cafeteria at noon. Big sis Elena, please don't make fun of Mingxi. The news of someone confessing to him using his homework has already spread throughout the school. I'm sure he's feeling depressed right now. Arguros looked at Mingxi with a gloating smile. He had long been unhappy with this guy who was so popular with girls. It would be strange if he didn't take this opportunity to add insult to injury. You're just jealous, aren't you? Ruglas bluntly exposed him. As a roommate who had lived with him for 4 years, how could he not know what this guy was thinking? I'm going back to my room to read. Mingxi looked at the noisy dormitory with a headache. He directly left in the name of reading. The others couldn't stop him in time. They could only watch as Mingxi went upstairs. After Mingxi left, everyone looked at Skycliff. Skycliff was sitting on the sofa, wiping the long sword in his hand, as if he didn't care about anything. Elena and the others exchanged glances. Forget it, let's ask Mingxi later. Would they admit that they were afraid of Skycliff's cold air? When Ajur found out about the love letter incident at the cafeteria, it was already dinner time. His roommates in the same dormitory took it as a joke and talked about it in the dormitory. Ajur was so angry that he almost got into a fight with the guy who talked about it the most. Fengwu was his good friend. How could anyone talk about her like that? Hearing that Fengwu's confession had spread throughout the school, even if Ajur knew how insensitive the Fengwu girl was, he was still worried. Moreover, he was the one who taught Fengwu how to write the love letter. If it wasn't for him, Fengwu wouldn't be like this. It was reasonable for him to find Fengwu as soon as possible. He couldn't let Fengwu hide and be sad alone. With that thought in mind, Ajur quickly left his dormitory and ran to Fengwu's dormitory to find her after kicking the roommate who talked about it as a joke. At this time, the atmosphere in dormitory 302 was tense. Ever since Rika heard about it, she hadn't been nice to Fengwu after returning to the dormitory. Rika was stuck in the middle and didn't know what to do. Because she had a good relationship with Rika, she couldn't go against Rika. She could only give Fengwu an apologetic look. Silda also heard about it. He wanted to comfort Fengwu, but when he saw the tense atmosphere in the dormitory, even the insensitive Silda felt uncomfortable all over. Fengwu didn't care about the tense atmosphere in the dormitory at all. Whitey had made a lot of delicious food for Fengwu tonight. She had a small bag, and Fengwu was sucking milk from a beautiful baby bottle inlaid with gems. She didn't know where he got it from, but he was blushing and sucking on the milk. He looked so cute. Fengwu was eating as if nothing had happened. Rika didn't want to see her so carefree. Some people are really shameless. She already had a child, but she still dared to write a love letter to Mingxi's student to confess. I really don't know what kind of face that person has. How thick does her skin have to be to do such a shameless thing? Rika elegantly poured a cup of fruit tea for herself. She had a decent smile on her face, but the most vicious words came out of her mouth. What do you mean by that? We're all in the same dormitory. Do you have to go overboard? Silda couldn't stand it anymore and said, This has nothing to do with you. It's because of her that everyone in 302 is laughing at us. Don't tell me you still want to be in the same group as her? Rika's words naturally contained some exaggeration. There were many people who laughed at Fengwu, but it didn't affect the whole dormitory. She made it sound so serious because she usually didn't like Fengwu, the only commoner in the dormitory. Are you talking about me? Fengwu only had time to deal with Rika after finishing a table of good dishes. In the whole dormitory, other than you, is there anyone else who has done such a shameless thing? Rika took a sip of the fruit tea. Her movements were elegant and decent, but the corner of her mouth was coldly raised. Her eyes revealed a trace of arrogance and malice. That was the gaze of a superior looking at a subordinate, the gaze of a noble lady looking at a commoner. Rika wanted to persuade her, but she couldn't say anything when she met Rika's gaze. Between Fengwu and Rika, she could only choose Rika. After all, she and Rika were in the same department, and both of them were noble ladies of high society. Although she liked Fengwu, she wouldn't choose to help her because of this little bit of affection. Silda was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She didn't like the arrogant Rika, and Fengwu was on good terms with her class. At this time, Silda naturally stood on Fengwu's side. In the whole school, there was always a rivalry between the swordmaster and mage departments. Most of the dormitory students had better relationships with swordmasters, while mages had better relationships with mages. Just by looking at the relationship between the students in the same dormitory, one could imagine how fierce the rivalry between the two departments was. Chapter 89. Rika looked left and right uneasily. She really didn't know what to do. Why couldn't her roommates get along so well? Silda took the initiative to stand beside Fengwu, looking like he was going to support Fengwu. As for Fengwu, she just tilted her head. Her eyes filled with obvious confusion. Why is writing a love letter to Senior Mingxi shameless? She clearly saw other girls writing love letters. Emogue also said that writing love letters was the most common way for girls to confess. Fengwu couldn't understand why Rika was so fierce. Was it because she wrote a love letter? You've already given birth, yet you still wrote a love letter to Senior Mingxi. You really don't know your own name and you're so shameless. Rika put down her teacup, not bothering to hide the disdain in her eyes. The baby is very cute. Why can't I write a love letter when I have a baby? Fengwu was even more confused. She wrote a love letter to Mingxi because she wanted him to be the baby's father. Auntie Tianyue and Auntie Lian both said that the baby would definitely need a father in the future. She learned from Senior Mingxi very well. Since he thought of Master this much, he must be a very good person like Master. You're so shameless. You're already a pair of broken shoes. Don't tell me you're delusional enough to think that you're worthy of Mingxi's student. She really didn't know if Fengwu was really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. What does it have to do with you whether I'm worthy of Senior Mingxi or not? Fengwu didn't ask this because she wanted to be sarcastic. She just didn't understand. You're so shameless. Everyone has the right to say that. Rika didn't expect that Fengwu not only didn't feel ashamed, but also acted innocent. Who was she pretending for? A commoner was a commoner. In order to climb up the social ladder, she would do anything. You think you're qualified to speak ill of Xiaowu? I think you're the one who's truly shameless. A juror, who was dressed in red, slowly pushed open the door and entered. A juror. I know you have a good relationship with Fengwu. Maybe you have some kind of relationship with her that we don't know about. Rika smiled ambiguously. However, this matter is an internal conflict in our dormitory. As an outsider, it's better for you to stay out of it. Rika was still rather wary of the first-year valedictorian Ajur. She didn't think that she could beat him, and of course she also didn't think that he could make a move on her in her dorm room. Internal conflict? You even want to care about Xiaowu's love letter? You really think you're something? I hate women like you the most in my life. Ajur's eyes were very cold, but the temperature in the room was getting higher and higher, as if the whole room was going to burn. Fengwu was no stranger to this feeling. When she first met Alando and the others, Ajur was like this in order to help her vent her anger. The hot air hit her body, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. Rika uneasily took a few steps back. What do you want to do? Have you forgotten that violence is not allowed in the Holy Court? If you touch me, you'll definitely be expelled from the Holy Court. Expelled? You think you're qualified to expel me? You really think too highly of yourself. I really don't know who gave you such confidence. Just because of your family's noble title? Ajur sneered. Suddenly a red light flashed, and a red cherry blossom suddenly appeared in his hand. The cherry blossom was sent in the direction of Rika by Ajur. When the cherry blossom approached Rika, she suddenly felt that her position had changed. She was no longer in the living room of the dorm room, but in a large cherry blossom forest. There was the fragrance of flowers everywhere, and there were cherry blossom trees full of cherry blossoms. The cherry blossom trees began to spin around her. Rika felt dizzy, as if she was constantly spinning in circles. What's going on? Why am I in this place? Could this be an illusion? Rika herself was a magician, so naturally, she was very familiar with the magician's methods. She knew that there were magicians who specialized in illusion. She was obviously in an illusion. Moreover, this illusion was of a very high level. With her strength, it was impossible for her to break the illusion by herself. Fortunately, this illusion was only an illusion to trap people. It didn't have any attack power. She was just trapped, Rika thought with some relief. Unfortunately, her rejoicing didn't take long before it turned into fear. The petals of the cherry blossom tree that was revolving around her began to fall one by one, then fluttered in the air around Rika. If that was all, then it wouldn't be a big deal, but those petals actually all turned into small flames. The small flames began to attack Rika. Her clothes caught fire first, then her hair, then her hands. Her entire body began to burn. Rika screamed in fright, shouting for help, but there was no one here. After her panic, she finally remembered her identity as a water magician. A condensation spell was cast, and soon a water ball was condensed in Rika's hand. This water ball was not big. Rika must be older, so it was impossible to condense a big water ball. When the water ball was condensed, Rika thought that this water ball could put out the flames on her body. But it was useless. It was useless. Not only was it useless, but her clothes were also burning faster. She had now forgotten that all this was an illusion. She only knew that she was in pain. The pain of being burned by fire was unimaginable for ordinary people. The fire on her body was getting bigger and bigger. Rika could only roll on the ground in pain. She hoped that she could put out the fire on her body and not experience such pain again. Soon her hands were burned to the bones. Her whole body was burning. There was no longer a piece of good meat to be seen. She could almost smell the fragrance of meat in the air. Who is this? So shameless. She actually took off her clothes in public. She even cast a condensation spell on herself. She must be crazy. Could it be that she's gone crazy from studying magic? Come on, she's just a first-year student. What kind of magic could make her study herself like this? What kind of people are these first-year girls this time? At noon, a freshman confessed to Senior Mingxi, and at night, another freshman ran out and took off her clothes in public. I really don't know what these freshmen are thinking. What are they thinking? They want attention. They're really going crazy thinking about men. This sister is already very open-minded. I didn't expect that there would be a higher mountain. She even dared to take off her clothes in front of so many of us. When Rika woke up, she happened to hear the noisy voices around her. These voices were full of disdain and joy in her misfortune. What was going on? She clearly remembered that she was burned to death in the fire. Chapter 90. She recalled everything that had happened. She was in the dormitory when she was caught in an illusion. In the illusion, she saw herself being burned to ashes. When she woke up, she heard these voices. Rika opened her eyes and saw a large group of girls surrounding her. Just as she was about to ask what was going on, she felt a burst of cold air coming from her body. She looked down and immediately let out a frightened scream. Ah! Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Rika screamed crazily and hugged her chest. At this moment, she was only wearing a bra that wrapped around her chest and a pair of shorts. Moreover, her body was covered in water. Because her clothes and pants were wet, they couldn't cover anything at all. When she lowered her head, she could even see 2 bright red spots on her chest. Why is this happening? How did I become like this? It's Ajur and Fengwu. It must be them. They wanted to harm me. They are demons. Rika's heart was filled with hatred. She hated them so much. Ajur, Fengwu, you'll die a horrible death. You'll die a horrible death. Don't be afraid. Come, put on this cloak first. A warm voice suddenly sounded above Rika's head. Then Rika felt something draped over her body. Rika looked up and saw a beautiful girl with purple hair looking at her worriedly. Thank you. After being mocked by so many people, the girl's kindness made her feel warm. She thanked the girl gratefully. No need to thank me. We are all magicians and are new students of the same batch. We should help each other. Zicheng smiled like an angel. Yes, the girl who helped Rika was Zicheng. Zicheng was also passing by, and saw a large group of people surrounding this place. Out of curiosity, she went up to take a look. She saw a girl lying on the ground in her underwear. The clothes she was wearing had been torn to shreds. Not long after, the girl woke up. Her panicked and helpless look made Zicheng know that this girl had probably fallen into someone else's trap. Otherwise, how could a normal person make themselves like this? Hence, Zicheng stepped forward, wanting to help this pitiful girl. Rika, are you alright? Anika walked through the crowd and finally found Rika, who was still lying on the ground with a cloak covering her body. I'm fine. Let's go back first. Rika didn't want to stay here and be gossiped about. She tightened her cloak and stood up. With the help of Rika and Zicheng, she returned to room 302. Room 302 was empty. There was not a single person in it. It was as if the scene of them arguing with each other was just a dream. Annika poured 3 glasses of water for the 3 of them while Rika went back to her room to change her clothes. Annika, what happened just now? Why did Rika become like this? Zicheng took a sip of water. Because too many things had happened in the afternoon, She wasn't in the mood to make tea. She only brought 3 glasses of warm water over. I don't even know where to start. Annika looked troubled. It wasn't that she didn't want to talk about it, but she didn't know where to start. Thinking about the methods she saw not long ago, Annika was very uneasy. She was originally a cheerful girl, but now she was frowning. I also want to know what Ajur did to me. Why did I come out of the dorm? Why did I become like this? Rika had changed into her school uniform and stood at the second-floor staircase. She looked very agitated, and there was obvious hatred in her eyes. Annika sighed. Although she didn't want to talk about this in front of outsiders, since Rika insisted, she could only tell her what happened during dinner. From Annika's narration, Rika knew what happened. It turned out that Ajur flicked a small cherry blossom at her, and that cherry blossom actually entered her forehead. After that, she started to show a face of pain. No matter how Rika called out, she didn't respond. After that, she started to scream and cast the water condensation spell on herself. She even rushed out like a madwoman. When Annika chased after her, she couldn't see Rika anymore. She could only search all the way and finally found Rika. The only thing she was thankful for now was that Rika didn't run to the male dorm. Although she lost face among the girls, at least she wasn't taken advantage of by the boys. Ajur, I won't let you go. Die. Die. Although Rika had already expected this outcome, she couldn't help but scream crazily when she heard what happened. She even threw the cup on the table to the ground, shattering it. Rika, don't be like this. You'll hurt yourself. Annika quickly pulled her down to sit on the sofa to stop her from throwing things around. Where are Fengwu and Ajur? And where did Silda go? Rika finally calmed down a little. After you ran out, Fengwu was taken away by Ajur. Silda helped me look for you. After she found you, she also left, Annika said uneasily. She knew Rika's temper. Rika was a very proud person, so she looked down on Fengwu's commoner background. Ajur probably saw how proud Rika was, so he used this method to humiliate her. Although Rika was in the wrong first, and Ajur wanted to help Fengwu vent her anger, she shouldn't have used this method to humiliate a girl. If Rika ran to the boys' dormitory, wouldn't her life be ruined? No matter how high Rika's achievements in water magic were in the future, what happened today would be a stain that would follow her for the rest of her life. Annika truly felt that Ajur was too cruel to treat a girl like this. Fengwu was the same. Why couldn't she persuade Rika? If she had, Rika wouldn't have ended up like this. Annika had completely forgotten that Rika was the one who was looking for trouble. They're all so nice. After doing such a terrible thing to me, they just left. As expected of the bitch's friends. Rika's face was full of viciousness that didn't match her age. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She couldn't wait to kill Ajur and Fengwu. She also didn't want Silda to have an easy time. What happened? Can you tell me? Why is Ajur going against Rika? Zicheng sat there and listened for a long time. Although she understood some of it, she had more questions in her heart. She knew that young man called Ajur. He was the first year's chief student. She heard that he had defeated the second year's chief student and was directly promoted. He was a powerful fire mage. She didn't know how strong Ajur was. Speaking of which, the two of them were in the same class. It was just that Ajur usually only hung out with his friends. She wanted to be friends with him, but he didn't care. In short, Zicheng's impression of Ajur was that he was a very arrogant person. Chapter 91. Isn't it because he wanted to stand up for his lover? There's a girl in our dorm called Fengwu. This afternoon, she was in the cafeteria. Rika's heart was filled with hatred, and she urgently needed to vent her emotions. When Zicheng asked, she naturally told Zicheng what she heard about Fengwu's shameless confession to Mingxi. She also told him about the argument between the two during dinner, and how Ajur came and embarrassed her in front of all the girls in the school. Fengwu confessed to Senior Mingxi? Zicheng covered his small mouth and exclaimed. He couldn't believe that the girl who didn't like to talk or smile would confess to a boy. It really didn't seem like something she would do. Yeah, she's really overestimating herself, right? I really don't understand who she thinks she is. She even has a child, yet she still did such a shameless thing. I just said a few words to her, and Ajur made me like this. The two of them must have an abnormal relationship. But thinking about it, a woman who has a child out of wedlock can't be a good person. I feel that it's unbearable to be in the same dorm as her and breathe the same air. Rika disdainfully speculated the relationship between the two with the greatest malice. In her heart, Fengwu and Ajur were a pair of adulterous couple. If it wasn't for the fact that Fengwu's son and Ajur didn't have a trace of resemblance, she would definitely think that Fengwu's son was the product of their affair. Fengwu has a child? Ziqing was shocked. He really couldn't tell that Fengwu was only 14. 5 years old and already had a child. It was simply too shocking. Thinking back to modern times, there was also a child who became a mother at a young age. Those children didn't like to study and liked to fool around. He really didn't expect that Fengwu, who looked so innocent, was actually a rebellious girl who didn't have a simple private life. Yeah, that child has always been raised by her in the dorm. Rika and I shouldn't have agreed to let her raise the child in the dorm. What kind of place is our school? It's a place for learning, not for her to raise a child. Rika regretted that she didn't report to the school when she found out about the child's existence. If the school knew about this, Fengwu might have already been expelled. She was still a student and got pregnant and had a child. Such a problematic student. She believed that the high and mighty Notre Dame du Starlight would definitely not accept her. She even raised the child in the dorm. Ziqing exclaimed again. After experiencing 2 lives, she could be considered an old person who had lived for dozens of years. She had always been very confident in her judgment of people. She clearly looked like an innocent girl, but she did something that no woman on this continent dared to do. Could it be that she really misjudged her? Ziqing naturally began to suspect for the first time. Could Fengwu really be like what Eve said, a girl who liked to put on an act? That's right. That child has always been raised in the dorm. There's even a saint beast helping her take care of the child. Doesn't the school care about this? In the 21st century, she had never heard of a student living in a dorm with a child. The school doesn't know at all. Annie and I are soft-hearted and didn't report her. However, her good days are coming to an end. Tomorrow morning, we'll go and expose the fact that she had a child out of wedlock and secretly raised a child in the dorm. I'll see how she still has the face to stay in the school. When Annie heard Rika's words, she wanted to say something, but in the end, she held back. No matter what, Rika was the victim this time. It was better for her to remain neutral. Ziqing was a gentle and considerate girl. It was very easy for her to become friends with others. After chatting with Ziqing for a while, Rika directly treated Ziqing as a close friend. The relationship between the two improved by leaps and bounds. The next day, rumors of Fengwu shamelessly raising a child in the dorm began to spread throughout the school. This rumor was spread by people in the same dorm. This rumor had already overshadowed the news of Rika running around the female dorm naked. Of course, Rika spread the news so quickly not only because she wanted to embarrass Fengwu, but more importantly, she knew that in order to not attract attention, she had to do something more important to divert people's attention. In order to divert the attention of all the teachers and students away from the fact that she ran around the female dormitory naked, she had to come up with a bigger and more eye-catching story to attract everyone's attention. The fact that Fengwu had a child out of wedlock was much more attractive than the fact that she, a freshman, had run around naked. Rika was walking on the way home from school. It had only been a morning, but the rumor had already spread throughout the school. She believed that the teachers would definitely take action. Hurry up and get rid of this Notre Dame du Starlight's disgrace. Ajur and Emogue had naturally heard of this rumor as well. Although Emogue didn't know whether it was true or not, he also expressed his support for Fengwu. Because of this rumor, the students in the class all looked at Fengwu strangely. Silda had known about this for a long time, and many people in the class also knew that Silda and Fengwu were roommates in the same dorm. Naturally, there were many people who were on good terms with Silda who wanted to find out the truth. Silda had long guessed that this rumor was spread by Rika to take revenge on Fengwu. She didn't want to be Rika's accomplice, but she didn't know how to answer this question. Every time she would just tell them not to spread this rumor and walk away. However, Silda didn't expect that it was her refusal to answer directly that made the students in the class even more certain that the rumor was true. I really didn't expect that Fengwu, who looks so innocent, would turn out to be such a whore. She's already a mother at such a young age. I really don't know what she's thinking. I knew she wasn't a good person. You guys don't know that she's usually very close to Ajur from the magic department. Even Emoge, who she's only known for a short time, is on her side. Her ability to seduce men is really extraordinary. Yeah. Yesterday, she even wrote a love letter to Senior Mingxi in front of so many people. She's so shameless. She's already given birth to a child. Yet she still wants to pursue Senior Mingxi, who's as beautiful and gentle as the moon. You women enough. You don't know anything and you still have the nerve to talk nonsense here. Emogue pointed at a group of girls who were gossiping the most and yelled rudely. The girls also knew that it was wrong to talk behind someone's back. They were even caught red-handed by the person in question, so they scattered in embarrassment. The other people who were gossiping about Fengwu also lowered their voices. After all, the person in question was still in the classroom. Emogue helped Fengwu carry her textbook and pulled her out of the classroom. Afraid that someone would cause trouble for Fengwu, Emogue planned to send Fengwu back to the dorm. Chapter 92. Not long after the two walked out of the classroom, they met Mr. James. Fengwu, bring your child to the office. Mr. James seemed to know that Fengwu had a child. He didn't even ask for confirmation. Fengwu nodded and went back to the dormitory to pick up the child. As for Mr. James, he went straight to the office to wait for Fengwu and the legendary child. Emogue was very worried about Fengwu. Although they hadn't known each other for long, he still treated Fengwu as a friend. Now that his friend was in trouble, he couldn't help at all. This wasn't a good feeling at all. Everyone thought that Fengwu would be unable to recover from this setback or be too ashamed to face others. Unfortunately, the Fengwu girl wasn't an ordinary girl. She had always been very thick-skinned. She might not understand anything you said in front of her. Fengwu was a little puzzled as to why so many people were looking at her secretly and openly. This puzzlement existed for a short while before disappearing. Fengwu wasn't a child who would seek trouble for herself. She let Little White carry Little Bun, and the two humans and one beast openly walked on the school road together. Along the way, there were students pointing at her from time to time. Originally, the public confession of Mingxi yesterday had already caused a stir in the entire school. Who would have thought that the girl who confessed her love for Mingxi the next day was already the mother of a child? This made many girls who liked Mingxi and boys who worshipped him dislike Fengwu. Everyone thought that her confession to Mingxi was an insult to him. Mingxi didn't say anything at first, but the boys and girls who liked and worshipped him had already taken action. They were all eager to teach Fengwu a lesson. Along the way, Fengwu finally brought the child into the teacher's office. The Swordmaster and Sorcerer departments' offices weren't separated. The teachers of the two departments were now very focused on Fengwu. They had different opinions about Fengwu raising a child in the dormitory. Some teachers thought that Fengwu's private life was indecent and couldn't become a student of Notre Dame du Starlight. There were also teachers who thought that Fengwu should just send the child outside. After all, she had relied on her own abilities to enter the school. They couldn't just expel her. The teachers were directly divided into two factions. One faction wanted Fengwu to stay, while the other wanted Fengwu to leave the school. In short, there was a heated argument. Come in. You must be Fengwu. Can you let me hold this child? The Sorcerer department's teacher, Rosalie, smiled gently and sweetly. When she saw the child in the holy beast's arms, her eyes were filled with love. Sure. Fengwu nodded. Only then did Little White hand the little bun over to Rosalie's arms. What a cute child. Rosalie looked at the child in her arms. An indecipherable light flashed through her eyes. The other teacher stood to the side and watched quietly. They didn't say anything, nor did they look at Fengwu with disdain. They just watched quietly, as if Fengwu was an ordinary student. It was as if she hadn't given birth out of wedlock. If the people standing here were a juror Emogue, they would definitely notice that there was something wrong with the teacher's expressions. Their curious and puzzled expressions were definitely abnormal. But the one standing here was Fengwu. This child was born to not be able to read people's expressions. Let me hold him too. The Swordmaster teacher Elrog gently took the child. He held the child in his arms and looked at him. No one knew what he was looking at. Where's the child? Let me see him. Where is he? Let me see him first. An old voice suddenly rang out from the office door. Following the voice was an old man with a head full of white hair and a long white beard. The old man's beard was so long and dense that it covered most of his face. Vice Principal. The teachers bowed respectfully at the sight of the newcomer. Fengwu didn't know who the newcomer was, but she did the same as the teachers. Let me see the child. The vice director noticed Elrog, who was carrying the child. He ran to Elrog at a speed that did not match his age. Then, he gently took the child from Elrog. This child is really good looking. As expected of him. The vice principal seemed to have thought of someone. He seemed to have become gentler. You must be the child's mother. You're amazing. You were able to give birth to him safely. You're amazing. The vice principal's voice was filled with obvious excitement. I almost died. When Fengwu spoke, her eyes were filled with grief. When Fengwu first transmigrated, she was giving birth to a child. This child was especially difficult to give birth to. The original Fengwu had all her life force and energy sucked out. That was why she died. Naturally, Tianlan didn't know this. She only knew that when she became Fengwu, she felt a force constantly sucking away her life force and energy. If she hadn't transmigrated and brought most of her energy with her, she would have died a long time ago. Good child, you're really good. Don't worry, the principal and I won't let you leave. In the future, study hard in school. If it's not convenient for you to take care of the child, you can leave the child with me. I'm an old man and don't have much to do. I can help you take care of the child. The vice principal's extraordinary enthusiasm made the teachers in the office wonder where the child came from. Could the child's father be a relative or friend of the vice principal? Otherwise, why would the vice principal be so happy? It was as if he had a grandson. No need, Xiaobai will help me take care of the child. Fengwu really liked this kind grandpa, but when she thought of Xiaobai who could take care of the child, she obediently shook her head and rejected the vice principal. You really don't want to think about it? I'm very good at taking care of children. The vice principal seemed to really want to help. What was with the expression on his face that said if you don't let me help, you can't leave? The teachers felt that there must be something wrong with the way they woke up in the morning. After a long time of persuasion, the vice principal finally got the right to take care of the child. When Fengwu went to class or had business, Xiaobai would bring the child to the vice principal. The vice principal would help take care of the child. The vice principal got the answer he wanted and was satisfied. On the other hand, the teachers were confused. Could this child really be the vice principal's grandson? But that couldn't be right. Did the vice principal have a son? He didn't even have a daughter. How could a vice principal without a child have a grandson? After repeatedly reminding Fengwu to take good care of the child, the vice principal finally allowed Fengwu and the little bun to leave together. After that, the vice principal left as well. Then the school issued a notice. The notice said that Fengwu's child was born because she accidentally ate the pregnancy fruit, and did not do anything that would bring shame to the school. Because of Fengwu's family situation, the school considered the child's need to be taken care of and agreed to let the child be raised by Fengwu. Chapter 93. Once this news was out, the entire school was in an uproar. No one would have thought that Fengwu's child was not born from a messy relationship, but from eating the pregnancy fruit by mistake. What was the pregnancy fruit? There was a mysterious country in the Far East. In that country there was a mysterious fruit tree. If a woman ate the fruit from the tree, she would be able to conceive a child. The gender of the child was uncertain, and it all depended on luck. This fruit that could make a person pregnant after eating it was called the pregnancy fruit by the locals. The production of this fruit was not high even in the local area. Every time it appeared, it would be fought over by female swordmasters and sorcerers who did not want to get married and only wanted to have children. Some women who had been unable to conceive for many years even saw the pregnancy fruit as their last hope. This fruit was extremely rare even in Central City, and Fengwu had actually eaten it by mistake and given birth to a son. It suddenly felt so surreal. How could it be? Do you guys think it's true? That Fengwu really ate the pregnancy fruit to give birth to a child? It should be true. If she's really as bad as the rumors say, the school wouldn't have specially issued a statement to protect her. I think so too. I thought it was strange at first. Fengwu looked so obedient, so why would she do something as shameless as giving birth to a child out of wedlock? Turns out it was all a misunderstanding. But she's really unlucky to have eaten the pregnancy fruit and become a mother at such a young age. Isn't that so? She's too unlucky. The voices of disdain and insults towards Fengwu had disappeared in less than half a day, leaving behind only sympathy and curiosity. This incident should have been a fatal blow to Fengwu's reputation, but in less than half a day, the tide had turned. Although not all of the voices of condemnation towards Fengwu had heard the news, there were no longer as many people who harbored ill intentions towards her. When Rika saw the announcement, she gritted her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. She could not believe that this incident, which should have dealt a huge blow to a girl's reputation, had been resolved in less than half a day after she was despised by the entire school. How could she accept this? Fengwu's bad reputation had been mostly cleared, and the news of Rika running around naked in the girls' dormitory slowly spread. Previously, there weren't many people talking about it because there was a bigger gossip. Now that the gossip about Fengwu had been clarified, the girls naturally used Rika's naked running incident as a joke. To be honest, Rika was just a new student, so not many people knew her. If it wasn't for Anika calling out her name, those seniors would only know that she was a new student and wouldn't know her name at all. After realizing this, Rika started to hate Anika. She even started to suspect that Anika was trying to frame her by calling out her name in that situation. Because of this suspicion, Rika and Anika's relationship fell to a freezing point. In the dormitory and in class, they went from being close friends to strangers. Anika was a cheerful and lively girl. In their class, Anika definitely had more friends than Rika. Although Anika felt wronged by Rika's estrangement, she didn't shamelessly ask for Rika's friendship back. Anika's birth status wasn't lower than Rika's to begin with. She was also a spoiled little princess in her family since she was young. Anika couldn't bring herself to beg for Rika's sake without her dignity. Moreover, their friendship hadn't reached the point where one of them couldn't live without the other. These were all for later, so let's not talk about them for now. Let's talk about how Rika felt when she heard that the main character of the rumors in school had changed from Fengwu back to herself. She returned to the dormitory with a gloomy face. Not long after she returned, Silda and Rika came in one after another. Fengwu was the last to return. Xiaobai carried Little Bun directly into Fengwu's room. Fengwu was left in the living room by Silda to ask Little Bun about Little Bun. In the past, they had asked Fengwu who Little Bun's father was, but Fengwu had always pursed her lips and refused to say anything. Now that they finally knew Little Bun's background, they didn't expect to find out in such a way. Rika felt uncomfortable all over when she saw Silda's gloating expression. She felt like everyone in the dormitory was laughing at her. This made the arrogant Rika feel like she was going crazy. After glaring hatefully at Fengwu and Silda, Rika went upstairs alone and locked herself in her room. She didn't even come out to eat when it was dinner time. Rika kindly packed some food from the restaurant for Rika, but Rika didn't appreciate it at all. She didn't even open the door for Anika. As for Silda, she didn't like Rika's princess-like personality. Fengwu naturally didn't care about Rika either. From the moment she moved into this dormitory, Fengwu knew that Rika didn't like her. Fengwu also didn't like the way she looked at Rika. She was never one to please others, so naturally she didn't care about what Rika was thinking. A few days later, Fengwu didn't see Mingxi in the restaurant again. She was a little unhappy. Ajur, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want to see Fengwu like a moth to a flame. Although Mingxi was a good marriage partner, his family wasn't likely to accept Fengwu. He didn't want Fengwu to be hurt in the future. In order to stop Fengwu from thinking about Mingxi, he used the excuse that he had enough rest and brought Fengwu to the Adventurers Guild again. The guild was still as crowded as before. The receptionist was still as beautiful as ever. After the two entered the guild, they went to the mission board to choose a mission. Because the last mission required them to go to another country, which had a big impact on their studies, Ajur planned to find two missions that were close to them and didn't require them to go too far away to do them. After choosing for a long time, he finally found a decent quest. This quest was very simple, but it was a little troublesome. The quest was to find a lost pet dog. This dog belonged to a noble lady. This lady was famous for doting on her pets as much as her own life. This time she offered a high price of 500 gold coins to find her beloved dog. In the Adventurers Guild, this kind of mission could be accepted by multiple people. The last person to find the person would be considered to have completed the mission, and would receive the reward. After successfully accepting the dog hunting mission, Ajur wanted to see if there were any other good missions to accept. Suddenly, the mission board refreshed. Heavens! A reward of 200,000 gold coins. I can't believe it. I actually saw the legendary S-rank mission. It's been a long time since someone posted a mission of this level. No wonder the reward is so high. Chapter 94. Quick look at the person who issued the quest. Why is it anonymous? Quest details. Destroy the marriage between Sir John Germain and Lady Minnery. The successful party will receive 200,000 gold coins as a reward. Quick look at the requirements. There is no level restriction for adventurers. This is too lucky. Doesn't this mean that low-level adventurers like us can also do this quest? There was no level requirement for adventurers. When Ajur heard this, he immediately ran to the front desk to find the receptionist and expressed his desire to accept the quest. I'm sorry, but you can't accept this quest. The receptionist smiled and said good-naturedly, What? Didn't you say that there is no level restriction? Ajur's eyes were red as he looked at the receptionist angrily. It was obvious that he couldn't accept this. Fengwu stood aside obediently and looked at the obviously angry Ajur. You're right. There is no level restriction for this quest, but this is a team quest. Only a team of 5 or more people can accept it. The receptionist directly flashed a quest list and let Ajur see the small words on it. Fuck. What kind of stupid rule is this? Ajur scolded angrily, but he had to accept this reality. This little brother. Are you worried about forming a team to do the mission? It just so happens that the 3 of us also want to do this 200,000 yuan mission, but we don't have enough people to accept it. Why don't we make do with it? The person who spoke had long gray hair and black eyes. He looked very confident and handsome. Yes. There are 2 of you and 3 of us. There are 5 of us. How about it? Make do. This time it was a girl who spoke. The girl was beautiful and generous. Her skin was as white as snow, and her long legs were wrapped in a swordmaster's uniform. Although she wasn't a great beauty, she was delicate and charming. Ajur thought about it and agreed. It would be difficult for him to find 3 people to form a team now. It would be better to add these 3 guys. If they had any malicious intentions, Ajur wasn't afraid of fighting with them. Please give your team a name. The receptionist said. Berserker. This name has already been registered. World. This name can't be used. Berserker. The beautiful receptionist shook her head. Zhou. He continued to shake his head. Longtongue. He still shook his head. Why go through so much trouble? Let's just call him expert. Ajur could no longer enjoy looking at people and shaking his head endlessly. Although these names were all thought up by the 3 of them, he only thought of this one. Alright, the expert team has been successfully registered. Just like that, a small team named Experts was finally registered. It was really worth celebrating. The 5 of them finally accepted the quest. After accepting the quest, the 5 of them found a noodle restaurant to eat ramen. There weren't many people in the noodle house, and the 5 of them had taken up an entire floor. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Tingyu. This guy is my twin brother Tingfeng. Let him introduce the one beside him. The only girl among the 3 pointed at a cute boy with dark blue hair. Upon a closer look, the 2 of them did look similar. They both had dark blue hair and eyes. It was hard not to think that they were a family. My name is Pei Qing. I'm a space magician. I'll allow you to call me Little Qing. Pei Qing combed his waist-length hair and pretended to be generous. Ignore this guy. He's a pervert. He's only interested in women's stuff. His hobby is to collect women's makeup powder, clothes, and all kinds of beautiful jewelry. What do you think? Isn't he perverted enough? Tingyu glared at Pei Qing in disdain. Pei Qing pretended not to see it. You two, from the looks of it, are you students of Notre Dame du Starlight? The cute boy listened to the wind and finished his big bowl of meat noodles. He wiped his mouth with a tissue and said with a very cute smile. Ajur was silent for a moment. It was the first time he saw someone who ate just a little slower than Fengwu. My name is Ajur. I'm a fire magician. This is Sword Mistress Fengwu. But how did you know that we're from Notre Dame du Starlight? Ajur frowned. They had changed their clothes. How did this guy know who they were? I was right. I knew I was right. Your Notre Dame du Starlight will give out strange missions to earn money every year when new students enter the school. That's why 9 out of 10 young people who enter the Adventurers Guild to register as adventurers are new students who specifically register as adventurers. Xiao Wu, why aren't you saying anything? Say something. Ting Yu was very interested in the only person of the same sex. She moved closer to Feng Wu and smiled cutely. Feng Wu blinked. Hello. She looked at Ting Yu and the other two seriously and greeted them. Hello. You don't have to be so serious. We'll be more casual. Ting Yu scratched her head. She didn't understand why the atmosphere had become so serious. Alright, let's cut the small talk. What do you think about this mission? Let's hear it. Ajur finished his bowl and wiped his mouth elegantly. Shouldn't the leader be the one to think of a solution? Ting Yu smiled innocently. Ting Feng and Pei Qing looked at Ajur at the same time. Their expressions said, "It's all up to you." Ajur really wanted to chop them up. You're telling me that you won't think of a solution and won't do anything. Then why did I form a team with you? Let's just disband. Ajur smiled coldly. He had no interest in being a sucker. That's not impossible. We're in charge of executing the mission. The leader is in charge of thinking. Look at how clear the manpower is. What do you think? Ting Feng immediately tried to curry favor with Ajur when she heard his tone. You'll listen to whatever I say? Ajur looked at the three of them playfully. Yes, of course. Ting Yu and the other two nodded vigorously. Alright then. Let me talk about it first. Our mission is to break up Sir John Germain and Lady Minnery's marriage. Who knows when their wedding will be? Ajur knew nothing about these two mission targets. He could only hope that these 3 monsters would be of some use. I know. Ting Feng, who was the cutest, raised her hand excitedly. Their wedding will be held in 2 months. 2 more months? That's plenty of time. Ajur nodded. Then he asked, what do you know about these 2 mission targets? I know. Sir John Germain is a young aristocrat. I heard that his family is very rich, and he's very popular with women. As for Lady Minnery, there aren't many rumors about her. I only heard that she's a peerless beauty. Moreover, she's the cousin of the Empress of the Soya Empire. She's so high in status. Pei Qing sighed. Pei Qing was also a handsome man. Why weren't there any rich and beautiful women who wanted to marry him? Chapter 95. The location of the mission is in the Soya Empire? Ajur was so focused on the 200,000 reward that he didn't notice that the location of the mission was quite far away. Although the Soya Empire wasn't a big country, it was still quite famous among the medium-sized empires. Yeah, isn't it written on the mission list? Ting Yu blinked innocently. What should we do now? Should we go to the Soya Empire immediately? Pei Qing asked excitedly. No, Xiao Wu and I have something else to do. We'll go to the Soya Empire after we're done with this. Ajur shook his head and rejected the suggestion. What is it? The 3 asked in unison. Looking for the dog. The 3 of them. Feng Wu. She held the cup and sipped water. Because Ajur and Feng Wu had accepted a dog mission, the 5 of them naturally postponed their trip to the Soya Empire. At this moment, the 5 of them were standing in front of the mission issuer's door. Are we going to visit the owner? Pei Qing combed his long hair. Ajur couldn't be bothered with the 3 monsters who insisted on following them. Xiao Wu, it's up to you. Okay. Feng Wu responded and walked to a big tree. She placed her hand on the tree trunk and closed her eyes. What is she doing? Ting Yu asked. Is she absorbing the wood's spiritual energy? Ting Feng touched her chin in surprise. Yeah, I don't understand, Pei Qing said seriously. TSK, you don't understand and you're still talking about it. Ting Yu and Ting Feng chased after Pei Qing and gave each of them a popcorn popper. Ajur just stood at the side and chuckled calmly. Would he tell these fish-lipped mortals what his Xiao Wu was doing? Let them guess. Over there. About 2 minutes later, Feng Wu put down her hand and pointed in a direction. Let's go, it's time to work, Ajur ordered, and everyone followed the direction that Feng Wu pointed. Not long after, Feng Wu found a tree and placed her palm on it. Not long after, she pointed in another direction and the 5 of them started running in the same direction. After repeating this process many times, The owner of the dog was finally found in an abandoned hut. However, the dog's leg seemed to be injured. There were dried bloodstains on its leg. When he walked over to take a look, it turned out that its leg was really broken. When Xiao Kuang saw someone coming over, it barked pitifully, which made people feel sad. Fuck, who is so cruel to actually do such a thing to a dog? Tingyu was an ordinary girl. Girls usually had no resistance to cute animals. Now that such a cute puppy was seriously injured in front of her, the little girl's eyes turned red with heartache. Fengwu squatted down and carefully picked up the little thing. The puppy seemed to like Fengwu very much. It kept barking, as if it was complaining to its mother. Take it to see a doctor. Fengwu looked at Ajur seriously. Ajur had always known Fengwu. This girl didn't talk much, but every time she spoke she was serious. Ajur didn't want to stop Fengwu from taking the dog to see a doctor. Not now. We have to let the owner see that her baby is injured. Only then will she find the bad guy. Xiao Wu also wants the bad guy to be punished, right? Ajur stroked the girl's head and smoothed her hair very skillfully. The girl lowered her head and thought for a while. Finally she nodded and agreed. The five of them headed towards the place where the mission issuer lived. When the servants guarding the door saw that they had returned with their master's dog, they were all overjoyed. They immediately rushed into the villa to report the good news to their master. Not long after, Fengwu and the others were invited in by the dog's owner. The dog's owner was a widow who had lost her husband. Moreover, she was a very rich widow. Thank you, adventurers. Thank you for helping me find my baby. When the chubby woman saw the puppy in Fengwu's arms, she immediately rushed in front of Fengwu and reached out her chubby hands to hug her precious dog. No, it's injured. Fengwu stepped back, and the chubby woman naturally missed. The chubby woman was a little unhappy at first, but when she heard Fengwu's words, she immediately became nervous. Her husband had died, and she didn't have any children. Naturally, she doted on her only pet dog. When she heard that her baby was injured, how could she not be nervous? How could it be injured? Who did it? When I find him, I'll skin him alive. The chubby woman's heart ached. When she thought of the bad guy who hurt her baby, she couldn't help but want to cut him into pieces. We don't know yet. When we found it, its leg was already broken, and there were bloodstains on its body. Tingyu looked at the puppy in Fengwu's arms with pity. Naturally, she didn't have a good impression of the person who hurt a small animal. Quick, go get a doctor. Go get a doctor. When the chubby woman heard that her baby's leg was broken, she panicked and called for a doctor. After the servant who went to get a doctor left, a 15 or 16-year-old girl came in with a tray. On the tray was a big pot of flower tea and a few clean cups. This woman was obviously a servant in the house. However, this girl looked very fair and clean, which made her very likable. The girl put down the cup and poured tea for the 5 people and the chubby woman. She bowed and turned to leave. Wait a minute. You have to apologize to the baby. Fengwu suddenly looked at the maid angrily. What's wrong? What's going on? The chubby woman looked at the maid and then at Fengwu suspiciously. This maid was one of her favorite maids. The little girl was very cute. She worked as a maid for her family and was very diligent. Madam, don't you understand? Your maid is probably the one who hurt your baby. Ajur was indeed Fengwu's good friend. He understood the gist of what Fengwu said. When Fengwu heard that Ajur understood what she meant, her eyes curved slightly. It was obvious that she was in a good mood. After hearing Ajur's words, the young maid's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Even the tray in her hand fell to the ground. Obviously, she was quite frightened. After a while, the maid seemed to come to her senses. She shook her head desperately and cried, "No, it's not me. Madam, I didn't. I'm innocent." The chubby woman, who was about to lose her temper, couldn't bear to see her crying so miserably. Are you sure? This kind of thing can't be said without evidence. Nana has been working in my house for a long time. I have always taken good care of her. How could she hurt my baby? The chubby woman was a kind person. Thinking of Nana's usual behavior, it was hard to believe that she would hurt a cute little animal. Chapter 96. I believe in Fengwu. What Xiao Wu said must be true. Ajur directly ignored the weeping Vanna. He didn't have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Ajur believed in Fengwu 100%. Even if Fengwu couldn't produce any evidence in the end, he still believed in her. Young masters, young miss, how can you ruin my reputation without any evidence? Although I am just a little maid, I also know how to repay kindness. Madam's kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. How can I hurt Madam's beloved pet? After hearing Ajur's words, Vanna secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Then she cried even more pitifully. Her face was full of innocence. I don't have any evidence, but Bao Bao can prove that it was you who took it out and hurt it. Fengwu didn't like Vanna. Since childhood, Fengwu was a good child who loved small animals. She didn't have any good feelings for bad people like Vanna who hurt small animals. Bao Bao can't speak at all. How can it prove anything? Vanna heard this and looked at Fengwu incredulously. What a joke, letting a dog testify. She thought that there was really a capable person who came, but it turned out to be just an idiot. Vanna secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She knew that if what she did was discovered by Madame, her end would definitely not be good, so she would not admit to taking away and hurting Bao Bao. As long as she insisted, she didn't believe that these adventurers could do anything to her. Miss Fengwu, Vanna is right. My Bao Bao can't speak. How can it testify for you? Madame shook her head and laughed. If I say it can, then it can. Fengwu looked at Madame seriously. She wanted Madame to say that she didn't lie. Master said that lying was not good, so she never lied. Baby, if she's the one who scratched or hurt you, just scream twice. If she's not, just scream once. Fengwu pointed at Vanna, who was still standing there in a daze. The puppy first glanced at Vanna with obvious fear in its eyes. Although it hadn't barked yet, the look in its eyes was enough to say that something was wrong. Bao Bao was originally very afraid of the bad person who threw him away and hurt him, but under Fengwu's encouragement, he bravely barked twice at Vanna. Although Bao Bao had never seen the girl holding it, it liked the smell of her body. She must be a good person. Puppies' thoughts were very simple. Their judgment of good and evil was often more accurate than humans. What else do you have to say, Vanna? The fat lady didn't have to trust Fengwu and the other strangers, but she had to trust her dog. After seeing the frightened look in her baby's eyes and hearing the two barks, the fat lady had to believe that the maid who had thrown her baby away was the one who had taken good care of her. Wana could see that the situation was over. She sat on the ground and cried, "How could this be? How could this be? It's all your fault. Why did you have to take that stinky dog back? Why did you have to be so meddlesome?" Wana let out two angry roars. She hated Fengwu to the bone for putting her in such a situation. "Wana, I don't think I've done anything wrong to you. You know how important Bao Bao is to me. If you have any dissatisfaction, you can come to me. Why did you hurt Bao Bao? What does Bao Bao know?" The fat lady was really angry. She really did not expect that the maid she had been kind to would treat her like this. "Why? You ask me why? Hey, madam, you're obviously so rich. Why didn't you help my family? You'd rather spend money on a stinky dog than help my family. Don't you love that dog very much? I deliberately took it out and broke its legs so that it could never come back. It could only starve to death on the street. Let's see how you treasure that dog." Wana was obviously ready to break the pot. She did not plead for mercy for herself at first. Instead, she began to criticize her master. "Didn't I help you? Your father's business failed. Your family owed a large amount of debt. Who helped you deal with it? Your mother was seriously ill. Who gave you money to hire a doctor? Your family was so poor that they didn't even have a place to live. I helped your family find a cheap house. Even your brother's job and your father's job were found by me. Speak with your conscience. I've done so much. Isn't it enough to help you? Do I have to give you all my wealth to help you?" The fat lady sneered as she spoke. She didn't know whether she was laughing at Wana's ingratitude or laughing at her own blindness. She mistook the ingrate for a little white rabbit. After listening to the fat lady's words, Tingyu and the others realized that the fat lady was so good to this Wana. They really didn't see it. Originally, they thought that she was a person who was difficult to get along with. "If you want to help me, why don't you help me pay off all the money? Why do you want my family of 4 to pay off the debt with such a meager income? You said that you want to help me, but you just want to highlight your kindness. A hypocritical person like you only deserves to have a dog to accompany you." The more Wana said, the more vicious she became. The more she said, the more she felt that what she said was reasonable. What did she mean by doing so much for her? What kindness? This was simply hypocrisy. She just wanted to use her kindness to earn a good reputation for herself. What was the use of a fat widow's reputation? She was still not liked by men. So that's what you think of me. Since you think I'm a hypocrite, why do you still want to work for my family and enjoy the benefits I give you? Since you think I'm being nice to you because I'm up to no good, you can totally reject it and find another job. But you didn't do that. You stay in my family and enjoy the benefits I give you, but behind my back, you feel that you are being used by others and that others don't sincerely help you. You are the real hypocrite. Although the fat lady had a good heart, she was by no means a saint. After paying a certain amount of affection, she was said to be hypocritical. Even if she had more feelings for Wana, it was all gone because Wana bit the hand that fed her. Wana's face twisted when she heard the fat lady's words. It was because her family was too poor that she had to accept the fat lady's charity. That was why she hated the fat lady so much. Well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Housekeeper, immediately send this maid to the city lord's mansion. I can't afford to have this ungrateful maid. Since you think that I'm hypocritical, then your family should still be the same. I don't want to be hated by others after doing a good deed. Chapter 97. The fat lady waved her hand and the housekeeper immediately went over to grab Vanna's hand, wanting to drag her out. When Vanna heard the fat lady's decision, she felt bad. No, you can't do this, you can't hurt my family. Vanna crazily shouted. Her eyes were full of hatred. This lady is not like you, I don't have a vicious heart. Although this lady won't do anything to your family, I will take back all the benefits they got from this lady. Your family has nothing from now on, you will continue to live with nothing. The fat lady's mouth hung a trace of a sneer. Daring to make a move on her baby, she should think of the consequences. The housekeeper grabbed Vanna and dragged her out. The fat lady's housekeeper was also a swordsman, and his strength was not low. Grabbing Vanna was like grabbing a chicken. Vanna still wanted to struggle, but unfortunately, she was just an ordinary person. How could she escape from the hands of a swordsman? The housekeeper grabbed Vanna and walked out. For someone like Vanna, this was the first time she saw a maid like her. She had never seen such an unconscientious maid who took her master's kindness for granted. Who did she think she was, a mere maid, daring to have resentment towards her master and even daring to hurt her master's pet? This kind of disloyal maid. The city lord's mansion would naturally have people to deal with her. Tingyu and the other two were surprised. It was also the first time they saw a maid like Vanna who didn't understand the situation. They felt that the world was really wonderful. Sure enough, there were all kinds of birds in the forest. After seeing that the baby was cured, Fengwu left the fat lady's house with Ajur and the others. The fat lady readily confirmed that Fengwu had completed the task. As long as she went to the Adventurers Guild to submit the task, the reward of 500 gold coins could be received. The next day, Fengwu and Ajur both asked for leave. They planned to leave for the Soya Empire early in the morning. Although the task was still 2 months away, there were still a lot of people who had accepted the task. What if someone had a sudden burst of luck and completed the task? After asking for leave, Ajur and the others prepared for the next day to gather at the transmission array. But when they were about to leave, they found a not too big nor too small problem. You three mean you have no money? Ajur's smile was peaceful, but it made people feel a bone-deep murderous aura. We have no money, all of our money was used to register as adventurers. The rest is just a little living expenses, adding up to less than 10 gold coins. Tingyu carefully hid behind her brother, afraid that Ajur would be impulsive and break her cute little neck. Don't be like this, we'll just take it as a loan. When we get the money, we'll pay back what we owe you. Tingfeng looked at Ajur with a kind face. They all knew that although Ajur and Fengwu were both rich, Ajur was obviously the one in charge, so if they wanted to borrow money, they could only ask Ajur. If they dared to borrow money directly from Fengwu, they were afraid that Ajur would directly send a fireball to each of them. That's right, we'll definitely pay it back. As long as we get this 200,000 gold coins, each of us will get at least 40,000 gold coins. We won't refuse to pay back what we owe, Pei Qing quickly said, afraid that he would be turned into a human barbecue by this ferocious guy. If you want me to help pay for it, that's fine, but when you pay back the money, you have to pay back double. Ajur was not a person who was willing to suffer a loss. With one look, he knew that these guys were going to eat them up. It would be strange if he let them have their way. Pei Qing and the other two had no choice but to obediently nod and enter the teleportation array one by one like abused wives. When the 5 of them came out of the teleportation array, they had already arrived at the Soya Empire. The Soya Empire was different from the Ice Mound Kingdom, which had ice and snow all year round. Here it was like spring all year round. Even when it was winter, the weather was not very cold. Walking on the streets, one could easily see hawkers selling things and pedestrians playing on the streets. Let's go. Let's find a place to stay first before we discuss further. Pei Qing had already walked out of the pain of being forced to pay double the teleportation array fee. As soon as he arrived at the Soya Empire, he was full of energy again. He even curiously looked around to see if there was anything suitable for his collection. Taking the teleportation array is really fast. Back when we first came out, we all took the flying beast carriage. Although it was a double room, it took too long. I stayed in the flying beast carriage for half a month. I was bored to death. After enjoying the high speed of the teleportation array and thinking about the flying beast carriage, Tingyu decisively turned on her complaining mode. Tingfeng nodded vigorously at the side. It was obvious that she agreed with Tingyu's words. Xiaowu, do you want to eat some of the Soya Empire's specialty snacks? Ajur was too lazy to pay attention to the 3 monsters. He held Fengwu's little hand and brought her to the snack stall. Yes. The Fengwu girl's eyes sparkled. She looked extremely cute. Don't be like this. We are a small team. If you want to eat, let's go together. The 3 of them quickly shouted and followed. The capital city of the Soya Empire was full of people. Walking on the streets, one could see the snack stalls everywhere. It was simply dazzling. There were many kinds of specialty snacks here. Not only were they snacks from the Soya Empire, but there were also many civilians from other countries who came here to do business. They all sold the flavors of their own hometown. The group of 5 started to eat from the first snack stall and ate to their heart's content. In order to eat something delicious, Tingyu and the other 2 borrowed from the loan sharks. When they borrowed, they were all frowning, but when the food was in their mouths, they were all grinning from ear to ear. Little girl, do you want to try my family's secret sesame seed cake? It's guaranteed to be delicious. Eat mine, eat mine. My family's snacks have been passed down for hundreds of years. When the hawkers saw Fengwu and the others approaching, they immediately greeted them. Although there was a lot of traffic, the hawkers who sold snacks also wanted to attract more customers. The hawkers were just short of using all kinds of martial arts. Fengwu took a fancy to a shop that sold roast duck. The 5 of them went in to eat roast duck together. They didn't expect to see someone who shouldn't be there when they went up to the 2nd floor. Senior Ming Shi. When Fengwu saw the figure sitting on the 2nd floor drinking tea, her eyes lit up. How unlucky. They had already walked to the Soya Empire and still bumped into him. Why did this guy come out and walk around for no reason? Couldn't he just stay in the academy? Ajur was blatantly biased. Why didn't he think about the fact that they were the ones who came later? This can't be the legendary brave little junior, right? Elena suddenly thought of the identity of the person who came. Her whole body immediately ignited with a strong flame of gossip. Chapter 98. You have to be careful. I have a bad feeling when I see Elena's eyes. Arguros couldn't help but whisper into Ming-Shi's ear. Senior Elena likes to tease cute little girls and boys. That girl will definitely be teased later. Ruglas looked at the cute girl in front of him and couldn't help but sigh for the black-haired girl. Is she really the girl who confessed to you and wrote a love letter? I don't think so. This girl doesn't seem to have such a bold personality. Arguros rubbed his chin and asked softly, Eat your food. Even such a big roast duck can't stop you. Ming-Shi rolled his eyes at the 2 and calmly drank his tea. He obviously didn't plan to pay attention to Elena and the others. Skycliff was as silent as ever. He didn't say a word and just kept eating. Skycliff had 2 hobbies in his life. One was sword practice and the other was food. In front of these 2 hobbies, everything else had to stand aside. Junior, are you Fengwu? You wrote a love letter to Ming-Shi and even confessed to him. Elena's voice was full of excitement. Her eyes were as bright as magic lamps. It can't be Xiao Wu is actually so tough? She dared to confess to a senior and write a love letter. If it was my sister, it might be possible. But if it was Xiao Wu, it's simply unbelievable. Tingfeng said while shaking her head. She obviously couldn't accept this fact. Get lost. Tingyu bluntly kicked away her good-for-nothing brother and successfully came to Fengwu's side. Xiao Wu, quickly tell me what's going on. That peerlessly handsome man over there is your sweetheart, right? No wonder Xiao Wu would confess to him. How can there be such a good-looking man in this world? He's really as beautiful as the moon. Tingyu looked at Mingxi's face with an infatuated expression. Xiao Wu, you really like that guy. You can't just judge people by their appearance. Some people are golden on the outside but rotten on the inside. You can't be fooled by that pretty boy. Pei Qing, who always thought of himself as a rare handsome man, couldn't stay calm after seeing Mingxi. How can there be such a good-looking man in this world? This family must have only one face to look at. They must have no strength, no wealth, no wealth. Yes, that must be it. Just as Pei Qing finished speaking, he suddenly felt a biting cold murderous intent. He saw a silver flash, and before he could even see what was attacking him, it had already arrived in front of Pei Qing. Just when everyone thought that Pei Qing was doomed, Pei Qing actually disappeared in front of them. When he reappeared, he was hiding behind a jur. Holy shit! Who are you? Why did you attack without saying anything? Pei Qing's face was full of fear as he stuck half of his head out from behind a jur and shouted, "How can this be? I actually didn't stab him. If I did, this guy's character would be bad and he would die. Each of us would get an extra 10,000 gold coins." Tingyu looked at Skycliff in disappointment. Her meaning couldn't be more obvious. Why didn't you work harder and kill that guy? You look like an expert, how can you drop the ball like this? What a pity. Tingfeng was also disappointed. Luckily, I've always been lucky. If I really died and turned into a vengeful spirit, I would ask you for my money back. Pei Qing stuck his head out from behind a jur. You're strong. Fight me. Skycliff completely ignored Tingfeng and Tingyu. He looked directly at Pei Qing, who was hiding behind a jur. Skycliff's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. It was the kind of look that would only appear when he met a worthy opponent. I didn't expect him to be a space magician. Space magicians are very rare even in the sacred court, Arguros said in surprise. They had never seen this young man before. He clearly didn't feel strong, but he was able to dodge Skycliff's attack. How could they not know how fast Skycliff's sword was? They didn't expect such an ordinary-looking young man to be a space magician. And judging from how he successfully dodged Skycliff's attack, this young man's strength wasn't as weak as he appeared to be. This young man's background isn't simple. Don't you think so, Mingxi? Ruglis said. Mingxi nodded calmly without saying anything. He wasn't interested in the background of the people around Fengwu. Mingxi didn't want to have anything to do with Fengwu. He didn't want to be confessed to by the Fengwu girl again. This kind of confession happened every time they met, and the time and place of the confession was so troublesome. Big brother, please spare me. You look like a super master. I'm just a little magician. How can I be your opponent? In order to avoid a strange duel with a master, Pei Qing wanted to throw himself into the dust. Enough, stop quarreling. Skycliff, go back. If you dare to randomly pull out your sword and stab randomly, I'll go to your room tonight and talk about life with you under the quilt. Elena couldn't stand it anymore and shouted at Skycliff. She just wanted to flirt with the girl. Why was he so difficult to deal with? This threat was obviously very useful to Skycliff. The originally cold sword-wielding young man's ears suddenly turned a little red. It wasn't clear whether it was from anger or shyness, but it was probably the former. Skycliff glanced at Elena and finally put away his sword. He returned to Mingxi's side and sat down. Good, now that everyone had left, Elena was finally happy. She grabbed Fengwu's little hand and said, "Come, cute little junior. Come and tell me why you like my little brother Mingxi. He's famous for not getting close to women. Don't look at how gentle he is to girls. In fact, he's the kind of person who cares about everyone but doesn't care about anyone. He has the hidden attribute of being a scumbag. Why don't you consider me? I'm as beautiful as a flower and have a hot body. Which part of me isn't better than that brat?" After hearing this string of bombardment, Ajur's face turned ashen. He slapped Elena's hand away from Fengwu's little hand. Then he pulled the dazed Fengwu girl to the side. He was afraid that she would be seduced by this shameless female hooligan in front of him. I can't consider you. You can't be Xiao Ye's father. Fengwu, who had been hidden behind Ajur, finally came back to her senses. The first thing she did after coming back to her senses was to say something that was so shocking that it was as if she didn't want to die. Young girl, shouldn't you be fiercely rejecting some female hooligans flirting? What's the meaning of your reaction? Fengwu, can two women get married in this world? What a strange place. Junior, you really know how to joke. Elena was speechless for the first time. Chapter 99. This Junior is really interesting. I support you. Take down our Ming-Shi. Arguro shouted at the top of his voice and successfully received a roll of the eyes from Ming-Shi. Don't be like this. This Junior is quite cute, isn't she? This guy obviously wanted to see the world in chaos. Are you guys family? Fengwu looked at Arguro suspiciously. We are friends. We are good brothers from the same dorm. We are almost like family. Arguro's gloating smile froze before he explained. Oh, I know. You guys are friends. Just like Ajur and I are friends. Fengwu girl nodded. She understood. Wasn't this obvious? Was it that hard to understand? Come and sit with us. This restaurant's roast duck is delicious. We ordered a lot but we haven't started eating yet. Come and eat with us. Senior Arguros is treating today. Don't be shy. It's okay to eat a little more. Rugla stood up and greeted them. Ajur really didn't want to go over. In Ajur's eyes, Ming-Shi was a pretty boy who kidnapped his cute girl. Naturally, the people with him couldn't be good people. However, in the whole team, only Ajur had a problem with Ming-Shi and the others. Even Pei Qing, who seemed to have been stabbed by a sword, didn't care at all. As soon as he heard Ruglas calling them over, he and Tingfeng supported Ajur on both sides. Tingyu pulled Fengwu along. The five of them consciously went over and sat down. The tables on the second floor were very large, and each table could seat 10 people. When the five of them sat down, it was just enough for a table of 10 people. Beast Glass ordered another 5 roast ducks and half a roast demon mutton. The entire table was filled with meat dishes. Not a single vegetable could be seen. Are you all seniors from the same school as our captain? We're in the same team as Captain Ajur and Xiao Wu. My name is Tingyu and this is my older brother Tingfeng. The one beside him is Pei Qing. Nice to meet you. Tingyu pulled a roast duck leg and said as she ate. She didn't care that her mouth was oily. Which school are you from? Elena shifted her attention away from Fengwu. She was interested in the 3 youths who had teamed up with Fengwu. We're new adventurers from the Adventurers Guild. We're not from any school, said Tingfeng, who was nibbling on a duck's neck. So that's how it is. Did you come to the Soya Empire for a mission? Arguros asked. Ming-Shi listened to their questions and answers. He slowly cut some roast demon mutton and ate it. He didn't participate in their conversation at all. However, Fengwu's gaze made him a little uncomfortable. Yes, we're here for a mission. However, the mission must be kept a secret. Even if you're a beauty, I can't tell you. Tingfeng looked at Elena and said seriously, don't just talk about us. Senior Ming-Shi, you didn't come to the Soya Empire to play, right? Ajur didn't like Ming-Shi for a long time. He wanted to find fault with him whenever he had the chance. We came here to attend a friend's wedding. The wedding is in 2 months. We can also take advantage of this time to go to the Soya Empire to gain experience. Ming-Shi just smiled good-naturedly at Ajur's unfriendly attitude. He wasn't unhappy at all. Are you here to attend Sir John Germain and Lady Minori's wedding? Tingyu couldn't help but ask when she heard that the wedding was in 2 months. Are you here to attend the wedding too? Such a coincidence? Arguros and Ruglas exchanged glances. Of course not. We just heard about it. Their wedding is a big event. Everyone in the Soya Empire must know about it, right? Pei Qing responded quickly. As he spoke, he stepped on Tingyu's foot. Can't this guy see that these people are friends with the bride and groom? If they knew that these people teamed up to ruin their friend's wedding, they would definitely kill them in advance. That's right, haha. Tingyu laughed dryly. She cursed Pei Qing in her heart. She cursed him to break his legs. Ming-Shi and the others exchanged glances. These guys were suspicious. The mission they were doing was related to the two newbies. Ajur secretly cursed. Didn't you see the look in Ming-Shi's eyes? They must be flattering him. He rolled his eyes in his heart. He secretly decided that after this mission, he must part ways with these guys. Being with these monsters would definitely be a burden. Among the group, only Fengwu was the calmest. She was now fully focused on two things: eating and looking at Ming-Shi. Eating and looking at Ming-Shi. Fengwu girl's eyes made Ming-Shi feel like he was some kind of food. It was so strange. After the two parties enjoyed a delightful roast duck feast, they bade each other farewell and left. Ajur and the others did not take this chance encounter to heart. Fengwu was quite happy. She was now working hard towards her goal of making Ming-Shi the father of her child. Unlike Fengwu's group, Ming-Shi and the others noticed the strangeness of Fengwu's group. After they left, they immediately contacted their friends in Central City and asked them to help check if there were any missions related to the wedding. After checking, they found one, and it happened to be the mission that Fengwu's group had accepted. Could this mission be issued by one of German's admirers, his future wife's suitor, or some other faction that doesn't want to see the marriage between the two families? Arguros could only think of these three possibilities. That's not very likely. Although the first and second possibilities are more likely, there aren't many nobles who can spend 200,000 gold coins to issue this mission. Their suitors are about the same age as them, and they are still young masters and mistresses who ask for money from their families. They don't have much money at their disposal. Moreover, with such a large expenditure, it was impossible for their family to not be aware of it. The possibility of them secretly going to the Adventurers Guild to issue such a mission was too low. As for the third possibility, it was more likely than the first two. It's just that it's too high profile. Although the person who issued the mission purposely went to Central City to issue the mission, there's still a risk of it being leaked. It's not something that those old foxes would do. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.